Chapter 709, Ximen's Defeat. Yu Zhugong initially thought that since the reinforcements of the Divine Prefecture Empire had arrived, they would definitely be stronger compared to the Yu family troops. However, the first thing they did was actually to retreat to Sky Bearing. It seemed like the Divine Prefecture Empire was not willing to wage war in this midwinter season. This news should be reported immediately to the Emperor. Maybe it could be considered as atonement for his crimes? However, since he personally led his troops and caused such great damage to the Divine Prefecture Empire, would Ling Tian the Azure still let him off? If Ling Tian was willing to let him go now, would he not prepare some countermeasures? The troops of the Divine Prefecture Empire had already entered the forest and were untraceable at this point. The present battlefield was a complete mess, but if one looked closely they would see that not a single one of the bodies from the Divine Prefecture Empire remained. Even the swords that were broken through fighting the war were all collected without any remaining a broken bar. The owner's name was carved on the surface of each sword. They would be buried together with their owners. The vast heavens groaned as the wind started to blow. The snow had stopped at this point, but the entire mountain pass was filled with a fog of tragedy. Within this fog, if one listened closely, they might still be able to hear the screams and shouts of the two armies, each bent on eliminating the other part. A broken bar. While the battle here had temporarily stopped, in the other areas it was as though a kettle had been placed on a roaring fire, bubbling and steaming up a broken bar. Ling Tian personally took the helm back in the Imperial Palace at Sky Bearing, sending out commands and orders like a stream of water. Some of them were delivered by messengers, some by horses, and some through messenger falcons. For the elites under the intelligence system in the four directions which reported directly to Ling Tian, all of them congregated towards the north. As for the head military advisor, Ming Leech, he sat within a tent, devising countless strategies and shifting the arrangement of troops. As usual, he was extremely busy with work. Under the strategy of the Ling and Ming duo, the north would be formed with the armies of Yu Yanhai, Dongfang Jinglei, and Shen Ruhu as the core, proceeding along as per the tactics. The moment they merged, it would no longer be a 1 million strong troop in name only, but in reality, that was a force on the level of a human tsunami, and personal skills no longer held sway when faced with such a huge flood of soldiers. Even a killing god like Ling Tian would have no way to fight through everyone. The joining of the three forces gave the Yu family a clear indication that this was a decisive war. The deciding battle was imminent. If one just looked at the intentions of the Divine Prefecture Empire, then it would seem like they have brought forward the battle that would decide the fate of all mankind. If that was not the case, then why would they bother wasting so much military grain just to move all their troops? If there was no huge event taking place, then were all their efforts just used to make ducks and drakes of it? 1. To make ducks and drakes is a metaphor used to describe something pouring all their efforts and time into something useless. While the current Divine Prefecture Empire was more prosperous than it ever had been, and could afford to waste some rations, it was not to the point where they could throw out such a huge expenditure without any form of return. When the Yu family and Yu Manlu received word of the news, they indeed did not dare to take it lightly. Yu Manlu similarly personally took the helm at his imperial palace to control the situation, and commanded the four generals of the Yu family, as well as millions of troops, to rush onward to Yan County. Only through preparation can one avoid any misfortune. The opponent had sent over 1 million troops to pressure the front lines, and if there was any carelessness, it would only result in the Yu family having their territories invaded. At that point, it could snowball and end in the annihilation of the entire empire. Other than their four armies, the Yu family also started to provide reinforcements to all the other areas. Be it replenishing soldiers, grain, medicines, or war horses, they shipped everything toward the Yan County. At this point, Yu Manlu received the missive of forgiveness from Yu Zhugong. The contents of the missive made Yu Manlu grieve and lament, but the information regarding the retreat of the Divine Prefecture Empire soldiers that Ling Tian accidentally leaked out created suspicions in his mind. Even with Yu Manlu's bearings, he almost fainted the moment he saw the news coming from Yu Zhugong. The losses stated within it were far too frightening, to the point that even with the Yu family's robust foundations, they might not be able to withstand this loss. When he first received news of the routing of their frontline troops, Yu Manlu had already deduced that for such a silent operation to be carried out, their troop count would not be huge, and should contain some special characters. From the strangeness of the battlefield, it was definite that the first pavilion had employed a few of their men to tag along this time. While he did not know the reason for them being trapped within the snow, Yu Manlu was well aware that this was a heaven-sent opportunity. If he was able to kill or capture these special characters, then be it Ling Tian or the first pavilion, it would be a heavy blow to them. Furthermore, it might even result in the collapse of the first pavilion. As such, Yu Manlu even treated the initial loss with some hidden glee. The hidden experts in his family usually only went down to the battlefield when commanded, but in this case, they took the initiative to request to join the battle. Naturally, he did not put harsh requirements on those that volunteered and merely put on a show before allowing them to depart. Yu Manlu's thinking was that to use such a huge force to go against the enemy that numbered at most 20,000 strong was akin to using a boulder to crack an egg, a simple matter. With so many experts of the martial world, and with a heavy snowfall in the mountains trapping them, there was no possible option of retreat for the enemy. For such conditions, if they were to allow the enemy to escape or if they were defeated, then it would be akin to seeing a ghost in broad daylight. From start till the end, the only objective Yu Manlu was concerned about was the capture of the people. Who were they, where they came from, what were their identities, and what impact would they have on Ling Tian and the first pavilion? It would be good if they could treat these people as bait to fish for more benefits, but he never expected their battle to end in defeat. But the missive sent by Yu Zugong clearly explained this detail. The death of 2 gold jade experts and close to 50 white jade experts gave an unbearable heartache to Yu Manlu. This was an unacceptable fact. How could Yu Manlu not be enraged? As for the latest developments of the Divine Prefecture Empire, Yu Manlu was excessively shocked, but still maintained his attitude of suspicion. For such a secretive operation, how could it be so easily revealed? For all they knew, it could have been a ruse by the enemy. Under his anger, Yu Zugong and his men were all thrown into the heavenly prison under Yu Manlu's order. None of them were allowed to be pardoned. To have the master of the first pavilion personally set out to rescue them, and to retreat after that without any signs of their army moving, it was as though they had simply vanished. This led Yu Manlu to believe that the enemy was most likely treating the wounded at some hidden location. This cemented his belief that the surrounded army had special people who were important to the Divine Prefecture Empire. However, it was too late to think about such matters now. The more he thought, the more he would drown in regret. At this point, Yu Manlu suddenly received the request for reinforcements from Zimensa. Zimensa mentioned that the Western Han was clashing with the 700,000 strong troops of Zhao Fingyang, and due to this thinly stretched forces, they were being fully suppressed by Zhao Fingyang. Each encounter had always ended in their loss. Because the enemy had an abundance of grain and soldiers, each far exceeding the number of the Yu family soldiers, their condition now could be said to be approaching a crisis. They requested for immediate assistance from the emperor. This could be said to be akin to meeting a thunderstorm when one's roof is leaky. In the direction of Yan County, the million-strong troops from the Divine Prefecture Empire were guarding the area, glaring like tigers watching their prey as they prepared for battle. Yu Manlu's attention the last few days was all placed in this area, and he hadn't expected Zimensa's area to come up with a problem. Furthermore, Zimensa was facing off against a peak general of his generation, Zhao Fingyang, with an elite army of 700,000. It was no wonder that Zimensa fell into a disadvantage. After all, inside Yu Manlu's heart, while Zimensa was intelligent and intuitive, he was lacking a whetstone to grind him. However, Zhao Fingyang was someone who had been fighting all his life, a seasoned veteran. It was not unjust for Zimensa to experience defeat under Zhao Fingyang. Furthermore, both the parties' strengths differed too much. While there was a possibility to turn the tides and use a smaller number to overcome the larger number, the prerequisite was that the enemy commander had to reveal a fatal flaw that could be exploited. With such an experienced schemer such as Zhao Fingyang at the helm, It was unlikely for him to reveal such a flaw. Since there was no chance to hope for a fatal flaw to be revealed in the opposing side, then one could only resort in pitting the strength of the troops against each other. However, the crucial point in this was that too few reinforcements were sent. It would merely serve as an appetizer for Zhao Fengying. But if they were to send more, a broken bar, where on earth could they dig out tens of thousands of soldiers for reinforcements at this time? Helpless to change the situation, Yu Manlu could only send down an order to Ximensa, strictly commanding him to hold fast and prevent the line from being broken by Zhao Fengying. At the same time, he quickly sent out another order, to hastily recruit soldiers from the territory of the former Wu County, before sending them as reinforcements for Ximensa. As for the 10,000 or so troops that were obstructing Fengmo and Lingfeng, they were commanded to not return to their original formations, but to form up into another army and rush towards Ximensa to assist him. Just as Yu Manlu was busy devising strategies the past few days, disputes started at the frontier. The general under Shen Ruhu's army, Shen Taiching, performed a sneak attack on the Yu family's grain supplies. While they did not succeed, the marshal in charge was scared silly by their attack. From that day onward, minor skirmishes happened frequently along the border. Along with the numerous conflicts, one could see the trend of a growing full-fledged conflict. The pressure given by the Divine Prefecture Empire on the Yu family slowly but surely increased. There was even a hint of an imminent battle. Initially, when the Yu family's troops arrived, they were not at a disadvantage and could be said to even occupy the advantage. However, following the many skirmishes, their battle performance had evened out. This was because the Divine Prefecture Empire had their back covered by Yan County. Not only were they free of worries, their passage was stable, allowing reinforcements to arrive quicker than the Yu family. As time passed, they gradually became the one that initiated the skirmishes against the Yu family, and the latter were slowly forced into a state of constant defense. The Divine Prefecture Empire had a strong desire for battle, but from start to end, they only focused on performing skirmishes. It seemed as though they had no intention to engage in a huge battle. The marshal of the Yu family took advantage of this chance to add numerous sentry posts. With over 2 million troops combined on both sides, all of them waited with bated breath. Looking out from Yan County, in the thousands of miles of grassland as far as the eye could see, countless war flags dotted the horizon. While both parties were clashing in Yan County, Ximensa and Zhao Fengying finally engaged in a head-on fight, with both parties having various casualties. As a whole, Ximensa was at a disadvantage. Even with the reinforcements provided from various locations, his overall military strength was still far below that of Zhao Fengying. However, he was no longer a sitting duck to Zhao Fengying's attacks, and both sides were currently locked in a stalemate. It was at this point that Ling Tian suddenly brought along a few of his brothers, using the cover of the night to infiltrate Zhao Fengying's army. The second day, Zhao Fengying's 400,000-strong army suddenly launched a full-on assault. That's right, Zhao Fengying only had a total of 400,000 troops. But in the report Ximensa sent to Yu Manlu, he had exaggerated it by one-fold. When Zhao Fengying attacked, it was the exact day when Ximensa's army welcomed the troops from the former Wu County. The timing was impeccable, and it left people sighing at the fact that in this world, something called heavens really might exist. If they had attacked earlier when Ximensa was preparing for the arrival of the reinforcements, then they would have had to face a strictly disciplined force. If they had attacked a day later, when the reinforcements had integrated into the army, then the Yu family's strength would then have swelled, and it would not be easy to quickly determine a winner. If they made a mistake in the process, most likely it could end up with the Divine Prefecture Empire suffering a defeat instead. Thus, choosing this time to attack was the most optimal, akin to striking a snake at the 7-inch mark. 1. The entire compound of the Yu family was messy, as people constantly entered and exited. The problem of military rations caused the logistics officer to sweat profusely, and the two sides had just met and exchanged pleasantries. Before they could even hold a meeting, while they were still being shown around the camp, the attack of the Divine Prefecture Empire arrived. The chaos experienced in this military battle was unprecedented in history. If the army only consisted of troops from Ximence's army or the former Wu County, it would likely not be so chaotic. However, it was at the time where the two parties had just met, causing the area to be as though the skies had been flipped. Everyone ran around like headless chickens, secretly blaming their parents for not giving them an extra pair of legs. This was especially so for the Wu country troops, who had rushed over from far away and were all exhausted. Facing Zhao Fingyang's relentless assault, they dissolved into a chaotic mess, trying to save their own lives by running away. Ximence's troops initially maintained their positions, but after being rushed over by their reinforcements, they too lost all semblance of an armed force. The most surprising thing about this battle was that Zhao Fingyang was unusually prudent. Not only did he attack with his full force from the get-go, he even brought all his troops over, including the cooks, pressuring the battlefield. As such, the two armies of the Yu family which had just met ended up being tragically routed. There was no sign of possible resistance, and Ximence immediately came to a decision, bringing his personal troops and escaping. The moment their marshal escaped, the 200,000-odd stragglers remaining lost their will to fight and scattered like birds and beasts. Besides, the troops from the former Wu County had plowed through countless mountain ranges to reach their destination. This was when they were at their most exhausted and weakest state, to the point that many of the soldiers just collapsed and sat down the moment they reached the destination. They were so tired that they did not even have the mood to eat, but what followed closely was the chaos of an enemy attack. Thus, many of them turned into spirits under the blade. In the time taken to boil a cup of tea, the elites of the Divine Prefecture Empire had killed a bunch of them, with it being a one-sided massacre. Angrily staring at the direction in which Ximence had escaped, the marshal spat out while tears streamed down his face. To think that I trudged for 3 days through the snow and mountains with 150,000 troops, all just to send myself to the slaughter. Ximence, you can really god-deed run. The escaping Ximence at this moment also had flames of fury smoldering in his eyes. In the end, those that escaped together with him numbered less than 10,000, the rest having been buried in the battlefield. There must be a spy within our camp. Otherwise, how could Zhao Fingyang be able to choose such an opportune time to attack? This is no coincidence. Ximence screamed towards the sky, his anger unable to be concealed. Marshall's words are correct. For such a coincidental matter, how could it be by chance? There must indeed be a spy within the camp. One of the generals beside him had escaped in a sorry state, his helm having fallen off in the escape. As he rode on the bare back of a warhorse, his eyes bulged in anger. That's right, Zhao Fingyang has always been a cautious person. Without a 100% guarantee, how could he dare to bring forth his entire army? Even if you gave him twice his current guts, he still would not dare. Besides, the marshal's plans in the past were all seamless, but somehow we always managed to get trapped by Zhao Fingyang unknowingly. There must be something wrong about this. Another general angrily interjected, while giving an excuse for the inability of Ximence to perform previously. If I find out which beast it was that betrayed us, I'll eat him alive. That's right, we definitely have to look for that beast that trash, cursed to give birth to a son without a butthole. We have to slice him to 1,000 pieces, and use his remains to light up a sky lantern. The rest hollered in fury. To be defeated in such a silly manner, it was the humiliation of a lifetime. It was no wonder that they were livid. However, nobody noticed at this time, that on the horse their marshal was riding, a few barely noticeable shakes could be seen. When they finally stopped, they gathered all the soldiers that had broken free from the encirclement by Ling Feng. Seeing the group of 80 to 90,000 all looking as though their souls had been completely scared off, Ximence could only arrange them to settle down as quickly as possible, before writing a missive of forgiveness to Yu Manlu. He also wrote about his fears of having a Ling family spy among the troops, solemnly reporting the entire matter to Yu Manlu before requesting for advice. This was something that needed to be checked, for if the Divine Prefecture Empire knew their enemies' movements like the back of their palms, then what war did they still need to fight? Zhai Mance's missive indeed attracted heavy attention from Yu Manlu. It was no wonder that Zhai Mance had suffered so under the hands of Zhao Fengying. If the enemy was already aware of all their troop movements, it would instead be surprising if they did not suffer a defeat. Even if he were to be the one leading the troops personally, it would not be easy to prevent any defeats. Under such a situation, the fact that Zhai Mance was able to resist Zhao Fengying's army for such a long time, and even bring 10,000 men out when being encircled, showed his talent and potential. As such, not only did Yu Manlu not give any punishment, he sent down a sacred decree of pardon. As for the excess troops of Zhai Mance, they were to return before being reassigned roles. However, at this point, Zhao Fengying and company were not satisfied with their loot even after settling their current battle. The main army immediately gave chase after the remaining soldiers. Their attitude was one of kicking a person while he was down. Chapter 710, A Wave of Chaos. In the following battles, Zhai Mance had truly lived up to his name of being a genius commander mentioned in the same breath as Ling Tian. After gathering all of the defeated troops, he was no longer the failure like before, and while his attacks were ineffective, his defense was without the slightest gap. While he wasn't able to turn his defeat around, his troops did not suffer too big of a loss. He wasn't arrogant in victory and didn't become frantic in defeat. Zhai Mance was truly a talented military genius. This was how Yu Manlu commended Zhai Mance after hearing the news about Zhai Mance. Any accomplished general would understand how difficult it was to raise the morale of defeated troops and reorganize them to defend against the crazed attack of a few 100,000 soldiers. Unless one was an experienced general who had spent his life on the battlefield, it was impossible to do so. However, Zhai Mance had actually achieved such a feat. He didn't only achieve such a feat but had even done so perfectly. He was truly a military genius. This gave Yu Manlu a wrong impression that Zhai Mance's previous defeats may have been because of spies hidden within the army. These spies must have revealed critical military intel. If not, it would be impossible for Zhai Mance to suffer such a miserable defeat. Thinking about that, Yu Manlu felt that it was all the more urgent for him to cleanse his troops of any spies. Just how many spies has Ling Tian arranged? Currently, only Zhai Mance's army is facing such a problem. Since Zhai Mance's army isn't big, the presence of these spies didn't affect the big picture. But if such a thing were to happen in the million-man army by swallow count a broken bar, Yu Manlu sucked in a deep breath of cold air. While Zhai Mance's loss was heart-wrenching, his loss had also served the purpose of warning the entire Yu family and wasn't without any benefits. Yu Manlu immediately decided to send out the most concealed spies of the Yu family to secretly investigate all the upper echelons of the Yu family army. The moment they found any suspicious characters, all military authority would be revoked and they would be sent back to the capital for punishment. Anyone who dared to resist would be executed without mercy. He would rather kill 1,000 by mistake than let a single spy get away. The sudden appearance of the enforcement squad created a small commotion in the Yu family camp. With a couple of individuals being taken away and disappearing, the entire camp fell into panic. Just when Yu Manlu began the cleansing of his army, the Divine Prefecture Empire seemed to have noticed Yu Manlu's intentions, and the battle at Swallow County had also intensified. Shen Ruhu, Yu Yanhai, and Dongfeng Jinglei sent out a series of attacks and tested the bottom line of the Yu family time after time. It was as though they wanted to force the Yu family army out into a large-scale battle. You are probably afraid that you will lose your opportunity after I weed out all the spies, right? How would I be fooled so easily? Before cleansing the army, I will not fight you in an all-out battle. Yu Manlu felt as though he saw through the scheme of the Divine Prefecture Empire and sneered in his heart. In his eyes, the action of the Divine Prefecture Empire was no different from a jumping clown. On the other side, Zhai Mance continued to fight conservatively. While his forces were still far from being a match for Zhao Fengying, After joining up with the 100,000-man army, Ximensa had a full 200,000 men on his side. He retreated as he battled and slowly inched towards the main forces of the Yu family without the slightest bit of chaos. Zhao Fengyang's attack came wave after wave and he was no longer wary like before. He led his 400,000-man army proudly as they marched majestically through the continent like a swarm of locusts. Despite being defeated along the way, Ximensa's army was never thrown into chaos. Along the way, he absorbed all the defeated soldiers and had truly become a large mixed army. At the same time, he was also getting closer and closer to the Yu family's main camp. The moment his forces met up with the Yu family's main camp, he would be able to escape from Zhao Fengyang's threat and could even turn around to launch a counterattack. They were only one day away from the Yu family army located at Swallow County. Everyone in the army let out a heave of relief. After being chased for such a long time, they had a belly full of anger to be vented. Zhao Fengyang was like a parasite who refused to leave their side, and despite every one of them being filled with anger, they were completely helpless. HMPH, our million-man army is right in front of us. Do you still dare to chase us? We will definitely welcome you to continue chasing us. At that time, we will be able to wash away our humiliation and it will be time for us to chase you. However, right at this moment when they were at ease and looking forward to taking their revenge, an unexpected fire broke out in Ximensa's camp. This fire came extremely suddenly and strangely. It was almost as though someone from within the camp had intentionally set the camp on fire. In just a short while, the fire spread rapidly throughout the camp and had even spread to the tents where the grain was kept. In the immense heat, the surrounding snow began to melt rapidly. The main tent was nearby and all the generals who were sleeping peacefully were jolted awake. After putting on their clothes anxiously, they ran over to the edge of the fire with their faces ashen and fear in their eyes. In front of the fire, a figure stood ramrod without moving an inch. He was Ximensa. The generals walked over with their faces flushed with embarrassment and their heads lowered as though they were waiting for death. Sneaking a glance, they saw Ximensa's pale expression with a slight trace of blood at the corner of his lips. His eyes were filled with hopelessness and it was obvious to tell just how heavy a blow this fire was to their marshal. Just when they were about to get to safety, such a miserable affair had happened. The heavens truly wanted their demise. The soldiers in the surroundings were covered in tears and they used the snow, mud, and anything they could find in the surroundings to put out the fire. However, all of them understood that no matter how hard they tried, it was impossible to salvage the situation. The military grain and strategic resources of their 200,000-man army were completely destroyed. What a hateful spy! In the silence, Marshal Ximensa suddenly let out a roar and spat out a mouthful of blood before collapsing on the ground. Marshal, mean a broken bar. The marshal has fainted. Sent the military doctor. All the generals immediately became anxious and began shouting out orders. In the past few days, Ximensa had become the sole backbone of the entire 200,000-man army. Ximensa had single-handedly led them through the most dangerous times and almost brought them to safety. However, at this crucial moment, their marshal was angered to the point that he fainted. All the generals were at a loss and fell into chaos. Just what should they do next? All of a sudden, the sound of galloping horses sounded like thunder and the entire ground began to tremble from battle cries. Zhao Fengyang's army had killed their way over. The Zhao family army had grasped the best timing. However, this timing was an extremely destructive one to the Yu family's defeated army. Since we don't have a way out, let us fight them to the death. A general roared with rage. Yes, let us fight it out with them. Everyone roared in unison. Right at this moment, Ximensa, who had fainted, twitched slightly and his eyes opened slowly. Marshal, are you alright? All the generals crowded forward with joy. Retreat, a broken bar with the fastest possible speed. A broken bar, return to the main camp. A broken bar, don't be reckless. A broken bar, there is only a single day left. A broken bar, broken bar. Ximensa's gaze was hazy as he said with clenched teeth. Before he could even finish his words, he fainted again. Everyone understood his intentions. This wasn't the time for them to be reckless. Marshal, they let out a heart-wrenching cry. Tears welled up in their eyes. Even when their marshal was in such a state with his life at risk, He was still concerned about the life and death of their brothers. How would they be able to find another marshal like him? The dozens of generals knelt down on the ground in unison and kowtowed to Ximen's unconscious figure with tears in their eyes. "We must protect the lives of our brothers. We must send our marshal to safety." Everyone looked at each other with the same thought in their minds. "Listen to my orders. Retreat at full speed." The order spread throughout the army quickly. Zhao Fengyang's army was already nearing the Yu family's camp. Under the glow of the fire, the countless glowing blades of the cavalry could be seen charging towards the Ama broken bar. In this emergency retreat, the 200,000-man army of the Yu family escaped in light dressing. They no longer had the burden of their grain carriages, and some had even thrown away all of their armor. They ran as quickly as they could towards the camp of the Yu family. With just a single day of journeying, they would be able to survive via broken bar. Right at this moment, the war drums of the Swallow County suddenly exploded and the three armies of Divine Prefecture Empire launched their most violent attack. This attack of theirs disregarded their lives and disregarded the price they had to pay. Regardless of their losses, they disregarded everything. The war drums of the final battle sounded. Yu Yanhai, Shen Ruhu, and Dongfeng Jinglei all received a blood-red letter from Ling Tian with the words they accomplished the task with a single stroke. Written on it: a battle to determine the ruler of the world. A total of 100,000 arrow towers shot out in unison and the entire sky was covered in arrows. Following that, 150,000 cavalry charged into the Yu family's army without a care for their lives. Finally, the remaining infantry troops launched their attacks like a swarm of locusts. They swarmed over from all directions using a human wave tactic. However, the battle was not a one-sided one. In just a single exchange, the attack of the Divine Prefecture Empire was obstructed. After the cavalry at the forefront fell into the traps and pitfalls of the enemy, the infantry at the back continued to charge forward with a loud battle cry and both armies broke out in an intense battle. Blades were dancing all around with the war horses sprinting and human heads rolling, with 2 million soldiers clashing together. Their furious roars and battle cries could be heard from 10 miles away. A commotion also sounded from the northwest and countless of defeated Yu family soldiers appeared from the darkness sprinting frantically towards the Yu family camp. Zhao Fengyang gave an order and the cavalry sped up, brutally massacring all the soldiers in their way. This destroyed the morale of the Yu family even further and the front line fell into chaos. Chapter 711, The Finale. When the Yu family army at Swallow County witnessed such a sight, they were angered to the point they almost went crazy. Originally, when the Yu family army saw those remnant troops rushing over, they were elated over having reinforcements. Despite the incoming troops being dispersed and out of formation, they were still reinforcements after all. Furthermore, with the forces of the Ling and Yu family being almost equal, the extra reinforcements would tip the scales in their favor. The general of the outer edge did not dare to delay and immediately arranged for how to position these fresh reinforcements. According to normal circumstances, these reinforcements would first group up into formation a couple of miles away and only charge when the general in charge gave the orders. However, the Yu family army never expected that their reinforcements would rush over immediately in a complete mass. Furthermore, the majority of them ignored the commands of the generals and charged over from all different directions. There were a few who had even run into the anti-cavalry barriers and smashed themselves to death. Furthermore, the traps of the Yu family were extremely delicate and not a single one of these delicate traps went to waste. Just like dumplings being placed into the boiling water, miserable shrieks sounded and their shrieks were even worse than those at the front lines. If they were to regroup and wait for their orders, how would such a tragedy happen? While the traps of the Yu family were extremely dense, it wasn't sufficient to contain the full 200,000 soldiers. The traps were very quickly filled up with their own friendly forces. Furthermore, after filling up the traps, They did not stop there and continued charging towards the defense line of their friendly forces. After that, they did not slow down and charge towards the middle of their friendly forces. Could it be that they were the Ling family army disguised in the uniforms of their friendly forces? This was not all. Following behind them was Zhao Fengyang's army of the Divine Prefecture Empire. Witnessing the chaotic scene before him, Zhao Fengyang let out a sneer and ordered immediately, "Force our way in. Kill a path out to the main camp of the Yu family army. We will meet up with the three marshals at the marshal tent of the Yu family." Regardless of how powerful the Yu family army was, at this moment, it was no different from fresh meat on the chopping board to Zhao Fengyang. This piece of meat that could be easily dealt with would allow countless individuals to prosper and lead a glorious life. More than 40 cavalry charged forward in a triangular formation and charged straight into the Yu family camp like a red-hot blade through butter. At the forefront of the triangular formation was the first pavilion head, Ling Tian. At this moment, he was holding onto the 7-star azure dragon blade that Ling Tian used to sweep through the 500,000-man army in the past. With a wave of his arm, a dozen of human heads flew into the air and all the weapons of the Yu family army were shattered the moment they came into contact with the 7-star azure dragon blade. Clad in black and atop a black horse, Ling Tian charged into the crowd like a bolt of black lightning. Not a single person was capable of blocking him for even a single instant. Behind him were the 40 or more elite assassins of the first pavilion trained by Ling Tian, who took the surname Ling. They each held onto a large blade in their hands, and in the face of these more than 40 individuals, the sea of soldiers seemed completely helpless. They formed the sharpest arrowhead for Zhao Fengyang's troops, and this triangular formation of theirs was like an unbreakable spear that opened up a large path in the Yu family army. Blood flowed like a river, heads rolled all around, and dismembered limbs littered the ground. After the appearance of these Death Reapers, there was a portion of the Divine Prefecture Empire soldiers who no longer had a chance to even take action. They could only raise their blades and chase behind with their faces red as though they were running a marathon. A marathon whose road was dyed red by blood. Ever since his last experience with Ling Tian, this bloodthirsty Ling Tian had been yearning to experience it all over again. With the opportunity to do so today, the 7-star azure dragon blade in his hands waved down mercilessly. Recalling the scene of Ling Tian charging forward and swallowing the large army, Ling Tian exploded forth with excitement and let out a roar. No one would have expected that this was Ling Tian's so-called final battle. This was his so-called trump card. The all-out attack of 1,000,000 soldiers at the front line was no more than a super-large decoy that Ling Tian had purposely created. His true killing blow was hidden within Ximensa and Zhao Fengyang. He used 1,000,000 soldiers to tangle with the main forces of the Yu family, creating small skirmishes every day to ensure that they weren't able to have any peace. On the other side, Ximensa retreated as he fought Zhao Fengyang, creating multiple accidents along the way, creating an extremely pathetic and messy defeated force to inch towards the Yu family's camp. Just when they were about to arrive, Ling Tian was afraid that Yu Manlu might notice his intentions and so ordered Shen Ruhu and the other marshals to launch an all-out attack. Ximensa didn't let Ling Tian down and had grasped the opportunity well. Together with the remnant soldiers that they had gathered along the way, the defeated Yu family soldiers numbered around 300,000. To both empires, this was a force that wasn't to be underestimated. If they couldn't be wiped out, it would be a latent threat in the future. While it would be impossible for these defeated troops to continue battling, the destructive force of such an army in hiding isn't to be underestimated. However, when it was a matter of life and death, their so-called military order and discipline were completely useless. Everyone was only concerned about running for their lives and had no choice but to clench their teeth and run towards their friendly forces. Are the traps on the outer edges of your defensive line extremely intricate? I shall use your own army to fill up your traps. The most advantageous factor was Ling Tian's arrangement of Ling Tian and the others to be in Zhao Fengyang's army. These super experts who killed to the point they were numb formed the sharpest arrowhead for Zhao Fengyang's army. Following behind the defeated troops, they charged straight into the main camp of the Yu family army. This was where the true strength of the Yu family was that would determine the outcome of the battle. Of course, without the 1,000,000-man army working together with them, It would be useless regardless of how courageous Ling Tian was. After all, human strength was limited, and regardless of how powerful one was, it was impossible for one to truly fight 1,000 or 1,000,000. However, the intricate coordination between the Divine Prefecture army had disrupted the tempo of the Yu family army. The layers of Ling Tian's plans were extremely detailed and intricately linked. As long as one part of his plan went wrong, this well-designed plan of his would fail immediately. Perhaps it was intentional or not, but every member of the plan was actually able to work together flawlessly. "The heavens are aiding me." Ling Tian burst out into laughter as the smell of blood in his nose excited him. His horse sprinted towards the place where the enemy was the densest like a dragon, and he completely ignored the incoming arrows. Before the arrows could even reach him, they were blasted away by his dense inner chi. With a wave of his blade, 17 human heads rolled onto the ground. Raising the reins of his horse, Ling Tian's horse flew over the corpses which had yet to collapse. With another flash of white light, another 10 or more human heads rolled like watermelons. Ling Tian was covered entirely in blood at this moment, and even his face was completely red. He was just like a demon who had charged out from a sea of blood. As the countless Yu family soldiers witnessed this frightening scene, their legs turned to jelly and they were thoroughly frightened. Many had even let out a shriek and wanted to turn around to escape. However, with their friendly forces densely packed behind them, where could they escape to? Ling Tian ignored all the escaping troops and continued killing a path of blood. A crisp roar sounded in front and a figure appeared on the flagpole of the Yu family. He had a snow-white beard and was clad in gold robes. He was a gold jade level expert. He stood atop the flagpole without moving an inch and let out a roar. "First Pavilion Head, do you dare to fight with me?" He was the law enforcement elder of the Yu family and one of their hidden experts. While their Yu family was surrounded by enemies on all sides, he could easily tell that the greatest threat to their Yu family army was the 40 or so experts in front of him. If he wasn't able to stop them now, their entire army would be fragmented at the very end. At that time, there would be no turning back. Ling Tian rolled his eyes, and after glancing at the bearded expert, he ignored the bearded expert and continued brandishing his blade. His intent was obvious. "Fight me if you want. I am extremely busy and don't have the time for you." That bearded expert let out a long roar and flew off from the flagpole as though he was stepping on air. With a swoosh sound, he stepped on the shoulders of the Yu family soldiers and flew towards Ling Tian. Ling Tian didn't even blink and he continued to urge his horse forward. His current mission wasn't to fight the experts of the Yu family. His current mission was to kill a blood path through this million-man army. His mission was to thoroughly destroy the morale of the army. While the army was currently in a mess, it was still far from their morale being thoroughly destroyed. After all, this was a million-man army. There weren't just a few hundred or few thousand soldiers. It would be impossible to destroy the entire army without paying a certain price. The Yu family expert flew above Ling Tian and hollered, "Spineless rat, to think that you are called the #1 assassin in the world. Eat my sword." Ling Tian tightened his knees and his horse sprinted forward. Ling Tian didn't wait for his arrival and had chosen to speed up and continue his massacre instead. That Yu family expert was angered to the point he began to tremble. Just when he was about to give chase, 5 or 6 figures surrounding him in midair and gleaming sword lights shot over toward him. The sword chi shot through the air with a loud shrill and pairs of cold eyes glared at him. The expert could not help but be startled. Not a single one of these experts were pushovers. Their killing intent shot towards the air and their oars were extremely stable. Every single one of them was a powerful expert. The bearded expert could not help but regret greatly. Even if he had to face any one of these experts alone, he would have to pay a huge price to emerge victorious. However, to think that there were 6 of them surrounding him at this moment. Furthermore, there were another 30 or more of them beneath his feet. At this moment, this gold jade expert had even wanted to throw his sword away to escape. However, it was already too late. After finally meeting an expert for them to play with, How would they let him off so easily? They immediately pounced forward like hungry wolves. Ling 17's shoulder was blood red and Ling Tian's shirt was torn apart to reveal the golden armor hidden underneath it. 6 figures then lightly landed back on their horses' backs like swallows. That gold jade expert pointed at Ling Tian with despair in his eyes. With a sudden bang, his figure exploded in midair. By the time his limbs landed on the ground, Ling Kai and the others had already sped off on their horses. This gold jade expert had truly died such a miserable death. With his martial arts, he could be considered to be a rare expert in the world. Even if Ling Jian wanted to take him down, Ling Jian would have to expend a great deal of effort. With the 6 famous assassins attacking in unison, even if Yu Man Lu was here, he would certainly have to avoid their combined attack. He attacked with great ferocity but was diced up into pieces in a single exchange. Ling Jian's blade was waving around madly and his eyes had already turned red from all the killing. He had long lost count of how many he killed and how many weapons he had destroyed. Despite the 7-star azure dragon blade being forged from black iron, it was already covered with countless small nicks. Currently, Ling Jian was no longer waving around a large blade but was waving around a large saw. Behind them, whenever they saw something flammable, they immediately set it on fire and left a billowing cloud of smoke behind them. At this moment, the sky was already bright. At the very front, Shenru, whose martial flag was fluttering proudly in the wind like the sail of a ship being majestically pushed forward by the wind. Ling Jian, who had successfully broken through the million-man army, burst out into laughter and welcomed Shenru's arrival. All the Yu family soldiers between the two of them had immediately scattered like frightened rats. Shenru burst out into laughter as well and held out his blood-stained right hand. He shook Ling Jian's hand firmly and both their armies had finally met in the middle of the enemy's camp. From afar, the Yu family's flag suddenly collapsed and the endless Yu family soldiers scattered in all directions pathetically. The army was defeated. The situation was set. Within the imperial palace in Bright Jade City, Yu Manlu had just finished reading the urgent battle report and the teacup in his hands slipped out of his hands. With a crashing sound, the teacup smashed into smithereens. Yu Manlu's usually scholarly appearance seemed to have aged a great deal in that instant and his back slouched greatly. His usually stable hands began to tremble and the slip of paper in his hand drifted down. Yu Mantang by the side was greatly puzzled. Bending down to pick up the slip of paper, he could not help but fall into shock. With 4 different marshals leading the 1,300,000 men army of the Divine Prefecture Empire, they swept up the remaining Yu family army from 4 different directions. As though they were dicing vegetables, their forces marched towards Bright Jade City. 3 days later, the remnants of the Yu family army were cleaned up. 5 days later, more than 1 million soldiers surrounded the entire Bright Jade City. It was obvious that the Yu family was already defeated. On the other side, news of victory had also been sent to the imperial palace of the Divine Prefecture Empire. Ling Tian, who was currently in a meeting, stood up abruptly. Ignoring everyone who wanted to stop him, he immediately ordered for his imperial troops to be gathered. He was about to take action personally to ensure success in a single stroke. While Ling Tian was the one who personally came up with the plans, even he never imagined that it would go smoothly. In just a couple of days, the entire army had surrounded Bright Jade City. If that was the case, Yu Manlu would be forced to take action and make his final stand. At that time, his sinister evil martial art would cause Ling Jian and the others casualties or even fatalities. To protect him, Ling Jian and the others would definitely force Yu Manlu to fight them before he could arrive. Ling Tian knew that this was something that Ling Jian would certainly do. Thus, Ling Tian was extremely anxious. He hated the fact that he couldn't grow a pair of wings to rush to Bright Jade City. As the Empress, Ling Chen needed to hold down the fort in sky bearing. The imperial consort Li Zu put on her silver armor and white robes, and accompanied Ling Tian out into battle. After losing him in her previous life and finally being reunited, Li Zu would not allow anything to happen to Ling Tian. Even if it was only a mere possibility, she wouldn't allow it. Thus, Li Zu would follow Ling Tian no matter what. She was confident that her presence together with Ling Tian was much safer than even just as his presence. because he broken bar. She could use her life and exchange it for Ling Tian's survival. Yu Bingyan's face was pale as she looked at Ling Tian with pleading eyes filled with tears. Among all the ladies, the one who felt the worst at this moment was undoubtedly Yu Bingyan. Her husband was currently fighting her family on the battlefield. Yu Bingyan felt as though her heart was being run through by knives. Ling Tian got off his horse and walked over to Yu Bingyan. Stretching out his arms, he held her tightly in his embrace for a long time before saying softly, "Don't worry, I know what to do. I will not harm father-in-law or third uncle. If I can, I will definitely try to preserve as many members of the Yu family as possible." Yu Bingyan nodded lightly in Ling Tian's embrace before she lifted her head and looked at Ling Tian with teary eyes. "Danj, I am already the daughter-in-law of the Ling family and will not think about anything else. Even I've broken bar, I only want you to return safely. I only want you to be safe." Ling Tian fell into a daze for a short while before whispering to Yu Bingyan, "Wait for my return. My Bingyan has to get ready to give birth to a son for me." Yu Bingyan's face flushed red immediately. Roaring with laughter, Ling Tian got on his horse and his horse sped up immediately, disappearing into the horizon like an arrow. Li Zhu followed closely behind Ling Tian and the flag of the Divine Prefecture Empire fluttered proudly in the wind. 3,000 cavalry then galloped off like a black stream. Ling Tian wasn't wrong with his guess. After surrounding Bright Jade City, the 4 armies of the Divine Prefecture Empire gathered together and set up camp. At noon today, Ling Jian had anxiously demanded that the entire army lay siege to the city. Even if they had to massacre the entire city and sacrifice their soldiers, Ling Jian wasn't willing to wait any longer. With news being sent by eagles, it would reach Ling Tian extremely quickly and Ling Tian would definitely rush over. However, Ling Jian wanted to get rid of Yu Manlu before Ling Tian could arrive. Even if he had to use his life in exchange for Yu Manlu's life. His idea had been immediately rejected by Shen Ruhu and the other generals. Ling Tian had already given a strict order. If the Yu family army was defeated, they were to surround Bright Jade City without attacking and not a single person was allowed to take action without orders. Those who defied this order shall be executed. Especially for Ling Jian, he must not be allowed to issue any orders. This was the first time in his life that Ling Jian dared to disobey Ling Tian's orders. Not only Ling Jian, even Ling Kai, Ling Feng, and the others were also the same. They all seemed extremely eager to siege Bright Jade City as though they couldn't wait for another second. They had even suggested that it would be better if everything could be settled before the emperor arrives. At that time, wouldn't it be a great merit as well? Why did they have to trouble the emperor to take action personally? Only Ling Jian and the others with the surname Ling knew about Yu Manlu's mysterious demonic martial art. This demonic martial art of his was frightening enough to harm Ling Tian's life. This was something that their emperor should not be allowed to face. With regards to Ling Jian's suggestion, Zhao Fengyang and the others who weren't aware of Yu Manlu's demonic martial art were also tempted. However, because of Ling Tian's strict orders, none of them dared to agree. Just when everyone was stuck in a stalemate, the flaps to the tent opened and an individual walked into the tent with a smile. Zhao Fengyang was shocked. The person who came was Ximensa. Seeing Zhao Fengyang's expression, Ling Jian burst out into laughter. He then placed his arms around Ximensa's shoulders and introduced Ximensa to everyone else. Only then did Zhao Fengyang find out that this pillar of the Yu family army, the genius who was on par with Ling Tian in the eyes of the world, was actually one of Ling Jian's brothers, Ling 30. Didn't the word Asa also mean 30? No wonder he felt that Ximensa didn't live up to his reputation during the battle. Only then did Zhao Fengyang find out that Ximensa was aiding him on the sly. No wonder his victory was such an easy one. Thinking about that, Zhao Fengyang could not help but feel his heart chill at Ling Tian's scheme. He had placed such a spectacular hidden chess piece so many years ago. The moment it appeared, it turned the entire situation around. His planning and patience were truly stunning. After introducing Ximensa to the others, Ling Jian immediately gave Ling 30 a huge mission: convince the captured generals of the Yu family to surrender. Ling 30 immediately agreed without hesitation. With Ling 30's reputation of a martial Ximensa, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to convince a couple of his former subordinates to surrender. With that problem taken care of, Ling Tian tried to use every method up his sleeves to force the marshals to order an attack. He tried threatening, enticing, and used whatever methods that should and shouldn't be used. However, the four marshals still insisted on their stand and refused to order an attack. Ling Tian was infuriated to the point he wanted to draw his sword and place it on their necks. All of a sudden, an idea came to his mind, and with a chuckle, he took out a jade pendant. Lifting it up high, he ordered, with the identity of an imperial envoy army supervisor, "I order the four marshals to attack Bright Jade City immediately." He waved the jade pendant around, and the words "as though the emperor is present" were carved out on the pendant. Zhao Fengyang and the others looked at each other helplessly. While a general wasn't restricted by orders on the outside, Ling Tian did indeed have the identity of army supervisor, and they could only helplessly agree to his orders. A miserable attack and defense battle was begun. After Ling Tian issued the first order, the attack had never stopped. At every moment, there would be soldiers crazily attacking the city. However, with 1,000 years of accumulation and the Bright Jade City being the former capital of Northern Wei, how would it be so simple to bring down the city? In the entire world, Bright Jade City could be considered one of the most sturdy cities. With just the number of experts living within the city, it wasn't a force that could be easily dealt with. In the past 2 days, the attack had never stopped. Ling Tian, Ling Kai, and the others had even tried to infiltrate the city and attempt to assassinate Yu Manlu. However, they would always end up being forced out by the numerous experts of the Yu family. Everyone knew that it was already over for the Yu family, and it was only a matter of time before Bright Jade City fell. However, the Yu family had displayed the determination to fight the Ling family to the end. Under such miserable circumstances, they refused to admit defeat. Occasionally, Yu Manlu would appear on top of the city gate with a tranquil appearance as he looked down at the endless troops. In Yu Manlu's heart, while the first pavilion head was a peerless expert, it wasn't worth it for him to take action personally. While his demonic martial art was a one-hit one-kill technique, he had to pay a huge price whenever he used it. He had to ensure that he would only use it when it was necessary and on the most dangerous person. Currently, Yu Manlu only had a single target: Ling Tian. Ling Tian, you wiped out all of my hope and forced my Yu family into such desperate straits. This enmity and hatred shall never be forgiven. Even if I am unable to obtain the world and become the ruler of the entire world, you, Ling Tian, should not dream of doing so. I will definitely pull you down into hell with me. Ling Tian stood at the very front and roared with all his strength, "Charge! Charge for me!" Gil. Ling Kai appeared behind him stealthily and said, "Brother Jian, even after all we have done, Yu Manlu is still hiding like a tortoise. I am afraid that we cannot allow this to carry on. Yu Manlu wants to wait until a young noble arrives before taking action. But if young noble arrives, things would be bad. Yu Manlu's demonic martial art is truly too frightening. Why not we gather all of our brothers and infiltrate Bright Jade City in the night? We shall stake victory and defeat in a single mission." Ling Jian's eyes glowed, and after musing over it for a long while, he clenched his teeth and said, "All right, we shall do that. We must not allow Yu Manlu to have the chance to fight with young noble. We can take this risk, but young noble must not." Ling Kai fell silent for a while before saying, "Brother Jian, but if we do so, some of our brothers will be injured or dead. If young noble blames us after that a broken bar." Ling Jian waved his hands and cut Ling Kai off. "Our lives were given by young noble. So what if we are killed or injured? Let all of our brothers prepare. We shall take Yu Manlu's head tonight. No one is to fight with me. I will personally take action to kill Yu Manlu." Chapter 712, The Finale. In the direction of the Swallow County, Ling Tian looked at the slip of paper in his hands and was exasperated. He immediately ordered, "Everyone get on your horses. Rush at full speed. We will not take any breaks in between." Ling Jian already started besieging the city yesterday? Li Zhu asked with a dull expression. From Ling Tian's expression, she could already tell. This Ling Tian sighed with anger. After this battle is over, I must definitely punish him. Li Zu let out a smile and said, Ling Tian is doing this for you. It can't be that you don't understand what he is thinking. Ling Tian snorted twice and glared at Li Zu. That is the lives of a few 100,000 soldiers. Which one of them isn't precious? Li Zu thought to herself silently, if it was me, I would probably do the same as Ling Tian. I would rather the entire world die or use my life in exchange than to allow any harm to come to you. It would be worth it for me to sacrifice everything for you, as long as you can live on well. What is the world worth? While Li Zu didn't say those words, Ling Tian could obviously see it in her eyes. His heart turned warm and he tapped Li Zu on the shoulders while saying warmly, don't worry. For some reason, after hearing Ling Tian's words, Li Zu's racing heart suddenly slowed down. Feeling Ling Tian's immense confidence, her heart also settled down and she let out a smile. Looking up at the darkening sky, Ling Tian let out a sigh. It is impossible for the entire army to rush over in time. We need to abandon the majority of our soldiers and rush over at full speed if we want to reach there before noon. If we arrive late, there will be a large number of fatalities. Li Zu nodded her head and smiled. If not for your strict order, Ling Tian wouldn't have been able to endure up until now. It is already a feat for him to endure up until now. If it were me, I would have taken action by now. After making some simple arrangements, Ling Tian and Li Zu left the main army and sped forward. Despite it being deep into the night, Bright Jade City was still filled with the flames of battle. In the palace, a general rushed in and reported, Your Majesty, the attack of the Divine Prefecture Empire remains intense and it has never stopped since noon today. Furthermore, their attack seems to be getting more and more intense by the minute. They will probably continue their attack for the entire night. Do we have to send our reserve forces out just in case? Yu Man Lu's expression was dark and he said after a long while, Arrange it according to your suggestions. The generals of the Divine Prefecture Empire have always treasured their soldiers, but their actions this time are extremely strange. For them to not bother about their losses is an extremely strange matter. Inform the various generals to defend the place to their deaths. Nothing will be allowed to go wrong. Roger. The general bowed respectfully and walked out. Their attack is becoming more and more intense. It is no more than a farce. They only want to distract us with their million-man army and deal us a killing blow when we least expect it. They only want to use their soldiers to surround our city and attempt to destroy our morale. It seems like the first pavilion head will take action tonight. Yu Man Lu said slowly with killing intent in his eyes, silent like a mountain, moving like the storm. If he takes action, it will be a big one. If not, how would he be able to kill me? Alright, this emperor will be waiting. Big brother, you mean to say a broken bar the first pavilion head may assassinate you tonight? Yu Mantang asked. Second brother, you are one of the few famous military strategists in the world. You should understand that it isn't advantageous for the attacking party to continue the attacks so late into the night. However, they don't seem to have any intentions to cease the attack but are increasing the intensity of their attacks instead. Second brother, don't you find this matter very strange? Yu Manlu looked at his second brother before continuing. Any oddity must have a reason. They must be trying to hide something by making such a large move. Their strange actions must be because they want to cover up another larger operation. In Bright Jade City, who else other than me would be worthy of them using 1,000,000 soldiers as a feint? Big brother is right. Yu Mantang's eyes narrowed and his oars suddenly turned sharp. Second brother, Yu Manlu's eyes turned warm, with the first pavilion head taking the lead personally. There will be many experts together with him. Tonight will be a tough fight. Victory and defeat have yet to be determined. You must remember something, a broken bar. Yu Mantang raised his head and looked at Yu Manlu. However, Yu Manlu suddenly stopped talking and looked out at the darkness. From the side view, Yu Manlu's face was filled with desolation and loneliness. A long while later, Yu Manlu let out a soft sigh and stood up from the throne. Pulling Yu Mantang's hands, he said with a heavy voice, Second brother, all of us here understand that the 1,000 years of our Yu family's glory is finished. Even if we make our final struggle, we are only stalling for time. He then waved his hands to stop Yu Mantang from talking and continued talking. Ever since I was young, I, Yu Manlu, have been filled with ambition. I swore to make my Yu family the #1 family in the world and the ruler of the entire continent. All these years, I walked forward step by step and everything went too smoothly. I even dared to say that the Yu family under my charge was more prosperous than ever before. Thus, I also became full of ambition and felt as though there was nothing in the world that I couldn't achieve. Everything in the world was in my grasp. As such, my ambition grew bigger and bigger, completely out of control. 10 years ago, the first time our Yu family was robbed, I sent people to follow the two stealthily. After following them until the territory of Skybearing, the two of them disappeared without a trace. However, I also found something very special. That was the time when Ling Tian was infamous for being a profligate son. When I found out that Ling Tian was no more than a 10-year-old boy, I began to have my doubts. Regardless of how degenerate he was, it was unlikely for his infamy to spread throughout the entire continent, right? Furthermore, his infamy had spread so rapidly. As such, I became curious, and after a great deal of effort, I found out that all of these rumors had originated from a gang called the Violent Wind Gang. Furthermore, this Violent Wind Gang was actually controlled by Ling Tian. At that time, I knew that Ling Tian wasn't a simple person. Ling Tian intentionally feigned weakness and ruined his reputation. When I was young, I intentionally acted in a high-profile manner and bragged in order to make a good impression with my father and the elders. While Ling Tian's actions were the exact opposite of mine, his intention was the same. It can be said that we both achieved the same result with different means. At that time, with authority in my hands, I believe that I would have been able to destroy that little brat with a mere flip of my palms. However, I did not do that. Thinking back, I am both with and without regrets. A broken bar. Yu Man Lu let out a self-mocking laugh. I saw Ling Tian grow up step by step, gradually growing in strength. It felt as though I relived my days from back then again. That familiar but strange feeling is true. A broken bar, indescribable. Yu Man Tang let out a sigh. He was naturally clear concerning what Yu Man Lu had been through all his life, and it wasn't surprising for Yu Man Lu to have such thoughts at all. This brat Ling Tian, his style is extremely similar to mine, and it can even be said that our actions are identical. We are both vicious and merciless, and walk down the path of violence and blood. However, he started a full 10 years later than me. Despite Ling Tian's strength being relatively hidden over the past 10 years, I am still aware of the majority of his forces. However, to think that we were completely unaware of the fact that the First Pavilion and Crystal Pavilion were also part of Ling Tian's forces. In other words, he had already created these organizations before I noticed him. After that, they hid entirely to ensure that they wouldn't be noticed by us. I believe that those two world-famous organizations were still extremely weak at that time. At that time, Ling Tian was only 8. He was only 8. 8? He was only 8? Yu Man Tang was dumbfounded, and a bomb seemed to have gone off in his head. An 8-year-old child was capable of creating the legendary First Pavilion and Crystal Pavilion, the #1 assassination and information organizations? If not for Big Brother's words, I wouldn't have believed it. Am I actually not dreaming? Yu Man Tang shook his head hard. He is truly a demonic talent. When Northern Wei used their martial order medallion to invite justice to kill Ling Tian's wings were already fully grown. However, I still thought that Ling Tian wouldn't be able to achieve much regardless of how talented he was with only a few years of hard work. Could his achievements measure up to the 1,000 years of accumulation of our Yu family? Furthermore, everything went too well at that time, and unknowingly, I became overly arrogant. I had hoped for a worthy opponent to make my life more exciting. At the very least, it wouldn't be too boring and lonely. A broken bar. Yu Man Lu let out a bitter laugh. Step by step, I became the monarch I am today from the little child I was in the past. At the same time, I trapped all the members of my Yu family here. I truly lost the entire game because of a single wrong step. The most frightening organization under Ling Tian isn't the First Pavilion, but the even more mysterious Crystal Pavilion. While the strength of the First Pavilion is frightening, they are no more than a sharp blade. However, the intelligence of the Crystal Pavilion is capable of burying an entire million-man army. The Crystal Pavilion has been hidden for almost 10 years and it has yet to surface in the world. If not for us coincidentally finding out that the Crystal Pavilion belonged to Ling Tian, we wouldn't have realized that all the information that we paid good money to buy from the Crystal Pavilion was filled with 90% truth and 10% lies. However, this 10% of lies was sufficient to destroy our Yu family. What's done is done, and we have made far too many mistakes when dealing with an opponent like Ling Tian. It isn't surprising for us to lose. I have regrets but do not have any regrets. Yu Man Tian's eagle eyes glowed with splendor. Second brother, what I want to say today is that you have to survive no matter what and pass down our Yu family's bloodline. As long as our Yu family's bloodline can be passed down, even in death, I will be able to face our ancestors in the afterlife. Big brother, Yu Man Tang cried out anxiously. Yanner is now Ling Tian's consort, and with this layer of relationship, Ling Tian will not take action against you. As for me, Broken Bar, Ling Tian would not let me off no matter what. If I die after this battle and Ling Tian remains alive, you must not take revenge. With Ling Tian's talent and his capable subordinates, the entire continent would have 100 years of peace at the very least. Thus, in the next 200 years, you must not allow the members of our Yu family to even think about taking revenge. This is something that must be placed into our ancestral rules. Those who defy the rule shall be executed. Yu Man Lu placed his hands on Yu Man Tang's shoulders and looked him in the eye. Promise me. You must live on and pass down the bloodline of our Yu family. Promise me. Yu Man Lu roared with his eyes turning red. Yu Man Tang's knees collapsed onto the ground. Big brother, Broken Bar, I promise you. Yu Man Lu then regained his usual scholarly appearance and turned around calmly. Waving his hands, he said, You Broken Bar, take your leave. He then looked up at the sky and didn't say another word. Big brother, Yu Man Lu remained still as though he didn't hear a thing. A long while later, he added, Third brother is extremely hot-tempered and you must take good care of him. A bad premonition rose up in Yu Man Tang's heart. Yu Man Lu seemed to be saying his final words before his death. Yu Man Tang then took his leave with a heavy heart. Yu Man Lu stood alone as he looked out into the darkness. All of a sudden, a resolute smile could be seen on his face as he muttered under his breath, First Pavilion Head, Ling Tian. Since I cannot wait for Ling Tian's arrival and your actions are so outrageous, it shall be you. With the #1 assassin in the world accompanying me into the afterlife, I don't have to be afraid of being lonely. Ha ha. All of a sudden, the crown of Yu Man Lu's head exploded and his hair shot up towards the sky. An azure chi could be seen flowing around his face as it slowly turned into a black chi. His originally cold eyes suddenly turned completely black and the whites of his eyes could no longer be seen. At this moment, Yu Man Lu seemed to have transformed into a decomposed skeleton with 2 black holes at his eyes. His long hair fell back down and Yu Man Lu's arms turned back to their original color. Raising his arms out, he took down his treasured sword and hung it on his waist. While his action was scholarly as usual, he no longer had his usual elegance and solemnness. Instead, he was emanating an extremely strange aura. In the hall, an eerie and frightening ghastly aura exploded forth, and it wouldn't be too much to call the hall a living hell. There wasn't a single trace of life via Broken Bar. The battle along the city gates was still ongoing and countless soldiers were dropping off from the ladders and being thrown off the city gates. The city gate was dyed red with blood and the foot of the city gate had a mountain of corpses. What a miserable battle! In front of the Divine Prefecture Empire's martial tent, Zhao Fingyang, Zai Mansa, Shenru Hu and Dongfang Jing lay frowned as they looked at the miserable battlefield. None of them could imagine that this single city was powerful enough to withstand the endless attack of a 1,000,000-man army for a full 5 days. In the past 5 days, the number of casualties of their army was also stunning. The Yu family's army was truly made up of elites. Without a single sound, 45 black ghostly figures appeared in front of everyone and walked over slowly. They were clad completely in black and had a black scabbard on their backs. With the 45 of them walking together, the entire night sky seemed to have turned colder than before. The person in the lead was the Divine Sword Duke of the Divine Prefecture Empire, Ling Tian. The others behind him were his brothers who had the surname Ling. Apart from Ling Tian and Ling Tian, Ling Tian had given the surname Ling to a total of 56 individuals. Apart from the 4 in charge of intelligence, 5 in Heavenly Star, Ling 50 who was back in Skybearing and Simensa, the others were all present. The steps of the 45 individuals were in complete unison and their indomitable aura exploded forth. It covered the heavens and the earth and a large whirlwind was stirred from their aura. Simensa's gaze began to burn as he looked at Ling Tian and the others, hating the fact that he couldn't jump into battle together with them. However, he could not. He had the responsibility of supervising the army at this place. After looking at all of his brothers in the eyes, Ling Tian turned around and commanded coldly, "The operation tonight is the most dangerous one that we have ever faced. Young noble saved us from peril and not only did he bring us up, he even taught us martial arts that are far superior to any martial arts in the world. Today is the time for us to repay our young noble's kindness. We are only allowed to succeed and not allowed to fail, even if only a single one of us is left. We must kill Yuman Lu under our sword. Do all of you understand?" "We understand." "Kill Yuman Lu. Only success, no failure. We will succeed even if only a single person is left." The 44 others replied in unison. While their voice wasn't loud, the killing intent in their voice was sufficient to make one's hair stand up. Ling Tian nodded in satisfaction. "The 45 of us will be split into 6 groups of 7 people. Ling Feng, Ling Yun, Ling Lei, Ling Dian, Ling Kai and I will each lead a group. We will take action separately and meet up in the Imperial Palace of the Yu family." 47, 48 and 49 are to move independently and support any group in need. Ling Tian walked forward slowly to the front of the troops and stared at each and every one of his brothers as though he wanted to imprint the faces of his brothers into their hearts. After this mission tonight, he may not be able to see them again. A long while later, Ling Tian waved his hands and said, "Set off." 45 of them put on a black mask and split up into 6 different groups. The next instant, the 6 groups shot forward like 6 black arrows and disappeared into the darkness. Simensa's eyes turned red and he hopped onto his warhorse. Waving a command flag, he roared, "Sound the drums. Attack." The first person to charge into Bright Jade City will be awarded 10,000 taels of gold in the position of General. I, Ling 30, will make this promise on behalf of the Empire. A broken bar. Despite it being late into the night, the soldiers of the Divine Prefecture Empire who had already battled for an entire day charged crazily towards Bright Jade City as though they were on stimulates. This attack was obviously different from the previous few attacks. Regardless of the generals or soldiers, they all charged forward without a concern for their lives as though they weren't afraid of death. Arrows landed like rain and the soldiers attacked like a tsunami. The battle cry of the soldiers shook the entire world. 45 black figures charged up the ladder as though it was flat ground. After killing a few enemy soldiers who were in their way, they quickly disappeared as though they had never appeared before. On top of Bright Jade City's gates, an extremely bright and colorful fire arrow shot into the sky and exploded with splendor. In the Imperial City, the warning drums that indicated danger also sounded. Yuman Lu's eagle eyes were fixed on the bright fireworks in the sky and his right hand was placed on the hilt of his sword. The moment had finally arrived. A broken bar. Not too far away from Bright Jade City, 2 figures shot over like shooting stars towards the city. Even if Yuman Lu was present, he would find this speed extremely frightening. At the north of Bright Jade City, a human figure appeared together with a stunning rainbow. Before the guards could even react, the figure disappeared swiftly. Right when Ling Kai and the other 6 entered the Imperial Palace, 10+ individuals appeared in front of them and blocked their way. 8 were middle-aged men and 3 were elders. Their expressions were solemn as they waited with their guard up. "Assassins of the first pavilion? Moon-climbing star-picking pavilion of the Yu family has been awaiting your arrival." Ling Kai's pupils narrowed and he did not hesitate in the slightest. Waving his hands, he ordered, "Kill." Pouncing forward, he brandished his sword and had easily destroyed 2 of his opponent's weapons. A broken bar. Ling Feng led his 6 brothers and carefully avoided all the patrols. They were already near the walls of the imperial palace and would arrive at the palace after flipping over the wall in front of them. Right at this moment, an eerie voice could be heard. "First pavilion, what incredible fame!" However, all of you don't seem to be much. Marshall Pointer Pavilion of the Yu family has been waiting for a long time. A broken bar as this voice sounded. 10 plus figures appeared on top of the walls of the imperial palace. Ling Yun, Ling Lei, Ling Dian, and the others had also met with the ambush of the Yu family's unreturnable pavilion, Shadowless Pavilion, and Ruler Tower. Ling Jian's group proceeded the fastest and took care of all the soldiers who blocked their way with lightning fast speed. When he was nearing the palace, he adopted the most straightforward possible method and charged over like a powerful gust of wind. Before the enemy army could even react, they had charged straight into the palace. However, they all received the greatest resistance because of that. The Yu family's Gliding Heaven Pavilion and White Jade Hall sent out their strongest experts to stop Ling Jian and others. As they engaged Ling Jian and the others in an intense battle, 6 battles broke out within Bright Jade City. The locations of all 6 battles were right outside the Yu family's imperial palace, just a single wall away. An aristocratic family with 1,000 years of foundation sent out the strongest force they could muster to clash with the first pavilion that was currently at its strongest. It was like a meteor crashing to Earth. Countless of once-in-a-lifetime battles could be witnessed between experts all over the city. Sword chi shot towards the sky. Killing intent burst forth in all directions. The family head of the Yu family, Yu Man Lu, had yet to appear. Before today, many of the Yu family experts were completely indifferent towards the fame of the Yu family. They all felt that the fame of the first pavilion was undeserved and they were only monkeys ruling the mountain with the absence of the tigers. But after exchanging blows with the first pavilion today, they finally understood how powerful the first pavilion was. Every single one of these black-robed men had the strength close to a gold jade level expert of the Yu family. There were a few who had strength superior to that. The most frightening thing was the bizarre movement techniques of these assassins and their extremely vicious swordplay. All the Yu family experts could not help but suffer a loss after a single exchange. The swordplay of these assassins was even more exquisite than the Yu family's swordplay that had gone through 1,000 years of refinement. Ling Jian became more and more excited as he killed and felt as though this was the most exciting battle he had to date. All of a sudden, he let out a long roar and his killing intent shot to the sky. His long sword became like a soaring flood dragon, mystical and unfathomable. Ling Jian felt as though his mental state had entered an extremely mystical realm and his entire sword seemed to be part of his body and he could control it as though it was his limbs. In this extremely cruel and miserable battle, Ling Jian had succeeded in making a breakthrough that he had dreamed of all his life. Ling Jian, who had advanced his cultivation, burst out into laughter and his figure shot into the air with a brilliant ball of sword light. Wherever he went, dismembered limbs and miserable shrieks would accompany him. In the dark, an individual stood in midair and observed the battle calmly. Upon noticing Ling Jian's breakthrough, his eyes glowed with splendor and he mumbled, "Another one. Not bad, not bad. I will not be lonely." He then looked towards the imperial palace and grumbled, "Why isn't Yu Man Lu taking action? When will he stop being a turtle?" As though answering to his pleas, a brilliant sword light shot out from the imperial palace and shot towards Ling Jian's back like lightning. Ling Jian's man and sword as one technique had massacred almost all of the Yu family experts present and Ling Jian finally landed on the ground with excitement in his heart. If it was before his breakthrough, his inner chi would have probably been sapped dry after unleashing such an attack. But this time, he still had more than 1/3 of his inner chi left. As long as he adjusted his inner chi slightly, he would be able to recover up to 60% of his inner chi quickly. Young noble is right. A reserved sword chi is indeed a higher realm than being one with the sword. I can unleash and retract my sword chi at will and not waste a single bit of it. Ling Jian stood proudly with dismembered body parts of the Yu family all around him. As his sword pointed down, the fresh blood of his prey dripped gently down onto the ground, a broken bar. Right at this moment, Ling Jian suddenly felt extreme danger approaching him. Almost instinctively, Ling Jian brandished his sword and dodged to the side. With a loud clanging sound, Ling Jian felt a powerful energy being transmitted from his sword and the remaining energy in his body being completely suppressed. His body stumbled backward and a large mouthful of blood was spat out from his mouth. The person who ambushed him did not stop there and his sword shot towards the falling Ling Jian, hoping to seal Ling Jian's fate with a single sword. Ling Jian's body rolled on the ground and a silver glow shot out from his sword to protect him. Being caught off guard, he was almost unable to withstand the incoming attacks. The attacker had a righteous face and scholarly appearance. His beard fluttered in the wind and he was clad in yellow robes. He was the emperor of the Yu family, Yu Manlu. This monarch of an empire had actually chosen to ambush someone from the back. The three brothers behind Ling Jian stabbed out their swords at the same time and managed to block Yu Manlu's frightening attack just in time. However, the force of Yu Manlu's attack sent them flying and the three of them knelt on the ground with blood flowing out from all 7 orifices. 2 other swords glowed and stabbed down mercilessly towards Yu Manlu's back. From a few other directions, miserable shrieks could be heard all around. Ling Feng's hair was in a complete mess and he was the first to appear on the walls of the palace. Following that, Ling Feng appeared with his body drenched in blood. The moment they appeared on the walls of the palace, they immediately shot down towards Yu Manlu. From the different directions, black-robed individuals appeared and sprinted over at full speed. The numerous Yu family guards and experts who were surrounding the experts of the first pavilion charged forward with exasperation. Right at this moment, a loud and tyrannical roar sounded. Following that, a cry like a phoenix followed and the entire bright jade city was covered with the 2 roars. While it wasn't too loud, all the soldiers fighting and civilians of the city could hear it clearly. Yu Manlu forced the 3 people behind him back with a single sword and could no longer be bothered with chasing after Ling Jian. He hurriedly retracted his sword and retreated into the guards of the Yu family. He then looked at the direction by which the roar came from with a smile that didn't seem like a smile and a malevolent pair of eyes. Ling Tian, you have personally arrived. Following the 2 roars, 2 figures descended on the walls of the imperial palace like 2 celestial beings. One was a suave young man and the other a ravishing beauty, Ling Tian and Li Zhu. They have finally arrived. Long live the Majesty! Ling Kai let out a roar and jumped up in excitement. Long live the Majesty! Long live the Majesty! A broken bar following Ling Kai's roar. The army of the Divine Prefecture Empire seemed to be jolted awake and they roared out in unison. The family head of the Yu family, the first emperor of the empire, is a despicable scum who ambushes people from their backs. A trace of blood could be seen at the corner of Ling Jian's lips as he mocked. He then retracted his sword which was pointed out and looked towards Ling Tian with a burning gaze. Ling Tian walked over slowly with a calm and easygoing expression. After checking on the injuries of Ling Jian and the others, he turned around slowly and looked at Yu Manlu. Ling Jian's voice was agitated and filled with worry. Young noble, move back. I will settle scores with you after this. Ling Jian opened his mouth as though he wanted to say something before lowering his head. Ling Tian looked at Yu Manlu and their gazes clashed. The 2 monarchs of the continent were meeting again in this life or death moment. Li Zhu's face was frosty and she got into a stance ready for attack. She stood on Ling Tian's left and her hand was on the hilt of her sword. Ling Jian took a step forward and stood by Ling Tian's right with his eyes locked on Yu Manlu's hands. Yu Manlu shook his head and laughed. With a crisp voice, he said, Ling Tian, Emperor Ling, it has been a long time since we last met, ever since our previous parting in Bright Jade. Emperor Ling now has millions of miles of territory and a million soldiers under your charge. Your prestige has never been seen before since the ancient times and it is truly worthy of celebration. Ling Tian smiled and replied, it has been a long time since we last met and family head Yu's elegance is just like before. However, family head probably never imagined that our meeting would be such a scene. Ling Tian still called Yu Manlu a family head and obviously didn't acknowledge his status as an emperor. Yu Manlu wasn't stirred by Ling Tian's words and replied with a soft sigh, you're right, I truly didn't expect this. However, I do not understand how you defeated my 1,000,000-man army. While I have already been defeated, I know that you must have done something on the sly. Otherwise, I would not have been defeated so quickly. I pride myself on my wisdom, but I truly do not know what despicable means Emperor Ling used. Ling Tian looked at him and suddenly smiled. Family head, let me introduce someone to you. You will understand everything after seeing him. He then clapped his hands. A human figure then appeared on the city walls and walked towards Yu Manlu. "Ximensa." Even if a living celestial being was in front of him, Yu Manlu wouldn't be so shocked. It was truly too shocking. It was Ximensa, the young general who he thought of so highly. Family head, Ximensa is only this subordinate's alias. This subordinate's surname is Ling and I am called Ling 30. From today on, there won't be a Ximensa in the world. Only Ling 30. Ling 30 smiled and cupped his fists. Ximensa, Ling 30. At that moment, Yu Manlu understood everything. He felt his blood boiling and his eyes dimming. He had almost fainted from anger. All of a sudden, Yu Manlu stood a step forward and roared, "Ling Tian, we once made a bet with the entire world as the stakes. It is now time for us to fulfill the bet. Do you dare to have a life or death battle with me? The winner will be crowned and loser vilified. The fate of the world will be decided with a single battle. How about that?" "Dream on." Before Ling Tian said anything, Ling Jian interrupted, "There is no need to talk about fighting a fair battle with a despicable person like you. Brothers, attack together and dice him into pieces." Ling Tian looked at him and suddenly smiled. "Family head, let me introduce someone to you. You will understand everything after seeing him." He then clapped his hands. A human figure then appeared on the city walls and walked towards Yu Manlu. "Ximensa." Even if a living celestial being was in front of him, Yu Manlu wouldn't be so shocked. It was truly too shocking. It was Ximensa, the young general who he thought of so highly. Family head, Ximensa is only this subordinate's alias. This subordinate's surname is Ling and I am called Ling 30. From today on, there won't be a Ximensa in the world. Only Ling 30. Ling 30 smiled and cupped his fists. Ximensa, Ling 30. At that moment, Yu Manlu understood everything. He felt his blood boiling and his eyes dimming. He had almost fainted from anger. All of a sudden, Yu Manlu stood a step forward and roared, "Ling Tian, we once made a bet with the entire world as the stakes. It is now time for us to fulfill the bet. Do you dare to have a life or death battle with me? The winner will be crowned and loser vilified. The fate of the world will be decided with a single battle. How about that?" "Dream on." Before Ling Tian said anything, Ling Jian interrupted, "There is no need to talk about fighting a fair battle with a despicable person like you. Brothers, attack together and dice him into pieces. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Less than report chapter greater than so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 713, the finale. Ling Kai and company chorused in response, pulling out their swords. Following the arrival of their monarch, Ling Tian, the warriors of the Ling family were all energized, showing off a sharper killing intent. At this point, the warriors of the Yu family also gathered. Their numbers were packed densely around the area, showing off an obvious advantage numerically. However, even 1,000 lambs could not stop a hungry wolf. Ling Kai, together with the other 45 brothers, were drenched in blood from top to toe, but every one of them still had sharp penetrating gazes, the killing intent seemingly not having faded at all. The top killers in the world, all 45 of them, actually managed to pressure the Yu family members into not daring to move despite their numbers. 20 of them had their swords raised from the inside, while another 25 of them had their swords pointed out. At this moment, the atmosphere seemed to have solidified, as though the heavens had suddenly frozen. Everyone present subconsciously held their breath, afraid that their own exhale might trigger some sort of calamity. If one were to describe the Yu family experts in the surroundings as the first layer, then Ling Kai and the rest would be considered as the second layer. Meanwhile, Yu Man Lu, Ling Tian, Li Zhu, Ling Jian and the other brothers that pointed their swords inside would be considered the third layer, so to speak. Li Zhu's beautiful face was devoid of emotion, while Ling Jian stood poised with his hand on his sword, akin to an immovable mountain as he stared ferociously. Ling Tian stood there with a slight smile on his face, appearing the exact opposite as he displayed a peaceful and tranquil vibe. Yu Man Lu's brows were furrowed with hidden killing intent, unable to control the frustration in his heart. The moment Ling Tian appeared, Yu Man Lu seemed to have felt an extreme pressure locking him down. As such, he did not dare to break out of the encirclement to rush towards the palace hall. This was because, the moment he left the ground, the person pressuring him would immediately give him a hole in his body. Even if his current martial skill was enough to kill everyone present here, it would not prevent his death. In this point, Yu Man Lu believed it without a doubt. This was because even if the person in the dark was Ling Jian, proclaimed king of assassins for this generation, the #1 assassin, Yu Man Lu still had complete confidence to escape this place with only minor injuries. There was a secret passage in the palace hall that only he knew about. As long as he could reach the passage, Yu Man Lu was sure that he could escape and rise again. However, the person hiding in the dark was the martial head, Heavenly Justice, the #1 expert in the world. Yu Man Lu was deeply aware that only two people in this world could produce this pressure to lock him down. One was Ling Tian, the other Justice. Right now, Ling Tian was in front of him, thus the hidden person locking him down went without saying. Unless Yu Man Lu had the intention to perish together with Justice, he would definitely die if he tried to escape now. Previously, Yu Man Lu would not hesitate to do so. Before this final battle, the people on Yu Man Lu's to kill list numbered 3, and it was these 3 that had shaken everything that stood for the Yu family's foundations. Ling Tian numbered 1st, Justice 2nd, and the King of Assassins Ling Jian numbered 3rd. Towards these 3, Yu Man Lu's hate for them surpassed all others. As such, Yu Man Lu disregarded his status to attack Ling Jian previously. As such, if Justice were to lock Yu Man Lu down before this battle happened, Yu Man Lu would not hesitate to sacrifice his own life, to fight for the chance to drag this undefeatable enemy down into the Yellow Springs with him. This would not be a waste of his life. However, even though Justice appeared now, Yu Man Lu had already changed his idea. While he still maintained a sense of dread towards Justice, his fear for him had long ago permeated deep into his heart. Even when he was merely a youth seeing the green-robed Yi Qingchen deliver the corpse of the Yu family's top expert Yu Zhaoqian back to the family, he already knew that Justice was someone he could not defeat no matter how heaven-defying his talent was. It was that moment that drove Yu Man Lu to cultivate that calamitous demon technique of his, walking down the path of no return. However, even now when he had cultivated the mnemonic technique to great success, he still had the same fear when faced with Justice, someone he was unable to surpass his entire life. The actual reason why he changed his mind was that another person was now added to his to-kill list. Furthermore, that person even topped the charts, to the point that Yu Man Lu wished he could personally grind his bones to dust, killing him 1,000 times over. Ximensa, also known as Ling 30. Yu Man Lu slowly evolved from the slight suspicion he had towards Ximensa, to the unwavering trust and heavy reliance on him, to the point that he passed the reins of command for the combined army troops over to him. Among the leading members of the Yu family, including Yu Man Tang and Yu Man Tian, nobody else had such an honor. Even more so given Ximensa's age, that Yu Manlu even considered secretly making him his successor. But now the truth was exposed that Ximensa was Ling 30. He was actually the dog belonging to his greatest foe Ling Tian. This was as good as stabbing a knife deeply into Yu Manlu's heart. The humiliation of being cheated on, the fury of being betrayed, the hate of 1.6 million troops seemed to gather in Yu Manlu's heart, almost causing him to explode in anger. This person must be killed at all costs. 1.6 million troops, all of them were reduced to ashes because of one Ximensa. This was the same force that he was prepared to use to conquer the world. Because of one person, he had nothing left. The Yu family, with its millennium-long foundations, had been ruined in his hands. As for this undercover spy Ximensa, he started scheming ever since he was in Western Han, to the point that one could deem Yu Manlu's hegemonic work ruined through Ximensa's hands. How could Yu Manlu not hate him? He would rather not kill Justice, not kill Ling Tian, but he had to send that Ximensa into the depths of hell, under his own palms. This Ajura who had the blood of 1.6 million troops of the Yu family on his hands. Yu Manlu ground his teeth so loudly they produced clacking sounds, as he breathed heavily. At this point, any semblance of his previous stability was long gone. Ling Tian had already arrived, together with the 45 assassins of the first pavilion as well as Justice who was hidden and waiting for a chance. Such a great strength was not something the current dregs of the Yu family could handle. While the latter outnumbered the former, Yu Manlu was aware that today's battle would only end in his defeat. The key point was to how many people he could pull down with him. Yu Manlu did not move. Ling Tian similarly remained still. Right now, the aura of Yu Manlu was accumulating to the point he was about to burst, and Ling Tian could clearly see a line of black surfacing on the forehead of Yu Manlu, a sign that he had started revolving his demonic technique. At this point, whoever went up first would have to endure the crazed final retaliation of Yu Manlu. Originally, given the disadvantage they had in numbers, Ling Tian's people were supposed to be widely spaced out. However, due to him personally appearing, his men had all gone to surround and protect him, causing them to be agglomerated together. If a huge battle broke out now, then a large portion of his brothers would lose their lives because of Yu Manlu's demonic techniques. This was something Ling Tian did not wish to see. Could it be that his arrival here would actually result in a large number of his brothers dying? Due to the changes happening within the city, a large portion of the Yu family's forces was gathered there, in contrast causing the city guards to be sparse at the walls. In addition, the arrival of Ling Tian meant that the morale of the Divine Prefecture Empire rose sky high. The three generals did not hesitate to send down the order to crazily attack the city, causing the number of flaws on the city walls to become ever so prominent. Countless soldiers of the Divine Prefecture Empire constantly swarmed in, resulting in the city protection general to finally lose his fighting spirit and turn around to escape. With a loud dehong, the south gate of Bright Jade City was busted open, the sound of hoofbeats sounding like a torrential downpour as the troops of the Divine Prefecture Empire rushed into Bright Jade City akin to a tornado. At this point, Bright Jade City had been breached. Bright Jade City that had belonged to the Yu family for more than a millennium could be considered as the fading flowers of yesterday. A loud and sturdy voice hollered out, "All soldiers are to listen to the command, kill those who resist, those who surrender shall not be killed. No harming of civilians, no rape nor pillaging, and no unauthorized barging into private residences. Those who offend, execution without mercy." The three armies rumbled like thunder as they chorused in agreement. However, the entry of the Divine Prefecture Empire soldiers into the city seemed to not have any effect on the happenings in the Imperial Palace. The tension continued. So did the danger. Only the sound of robes fluttering could be heard as Yu Man-yuan and Yu Man-tang flew down to stand beside Yu Man-lu. Ling Tian. Yu Man-yuan was covered in blood, his expression a little ferocious as he growled, "You've finally come, finally reached your destination at last. You've also forced my brother to a dead end. You should be satisfied now, right?" Third Master Yu, Ling Tian sighed in response. For Third Master to appear here with such an attitude, why is that so? Bullshit. Yu Man-tian spat, "This old man naturally wants to live and die with my brother. While he might have done wrong, practicing a demonic technique, but he has never performed any of the 10 evils. Even if he has angered the world, he is still my old 30s eldest brother. Siblings from the same mother, linked by flesh and blood. The Yu family is united, living and dying together. Yu Man Tang stared at Ling Tian with a complicated look, before replying in a calm tone, "That's right." The 3 brothers of the Yu family will advance and retreat at the same time, living and dying together. Yu Man Lu's body trembled, looking at his 2 brothers who were shielding in front of him. A myriad of emotions rushed through his heart. After a long time, he turned his head to look at Ling Tian, the killing intent shining within. The surrounding soldiers from the Divine Prefecture Empire grew more numerous, unintentionally forming the 4th layer of encirclement. "Ling Tian, take your brothers to assist those in the outer layers. Scatter all of them first, without mercy. If there are any who resist, kill." Ling Tian's eyes were trained on Yu Man Lu at this moment, as he passed down the order to Ling Tian beside him. Like this, his brothers would not suffer such huge casualties. "Young noble," Ling Tian's body shook. Others might not be able to understand his intentions, but having grown up with Ling Tian since he was young, how can Ling Tian not under the true underlying meaning behind his command? "Go, quickly." Ling Tian's tone was severe. In front of so many people, Ling Tian did not dare, and could not openly disobey the orders of Ling Tian, while he would rather be the one to block the life-threatening blow of Yu Man Lu. "Kill, quickly kill all of them." Ling Tian's shout pierced the air, as his eyes turned red. The moment his body shifted back, he immediately went into sword and body as one. Only by solving this problem as quickly as possible could he then rejoin the young noble by his side to do battle. Ling Tian's sword techniques, speed and might reached their highest he had ever witnessed at this moment. Similarly, understanding the urgency behind Ling Tian's command, none of the other Ling brothers dared to dally. With loud shouts, they pulled out all the stops, and the 40-odd of them activated the same move as Ling Tian. Man and sword as one. With 45 of them simultaneously activating the highest accomplishment of man and sword as one, doing their best to kill all the enemies. The brilliant sword glows lit up the night sky at this moment, brightening the area to the point it looked like daytime in front of the Yu family imperial palace, penetrating everyone's eyes. Ray after ray of sword glows flashed, followed by spouts of blood spewing towards the sky. The elders of the Yu family could no longer sit still, and for those who could also reach the same level, they too executed man and sword as one, retaliating. In the entire field, beams of sword lights clashed like the booms of thunder, as though the thunder god was having a drunken fit. In this world, the skill of man and sword as one was supposed to be the stuff of legends. However, at this moment, that skill seemed like a worthless trash ability, akin to the common white cabbages one could find in a market. The only difference was that the white cabbages contained a destructive force which could wipe away all that stood in its way. Lin Kai and others had long developed some sort of rapport, whereby sword glows released by them that seemed random were actually all aimed towards a particular person, sealing off his escape routes and killing him in a blow. The 45 of them weaving around, as though constructing a huge sword web akin to a seamless heavenly net. This was not all. The most amazing part was the fact that they never once let anyone slip through. There were times where they did not even need to look. This was a true miraculous skill, a divine ability. Countless rays of sword energy flew across the area, causing deep grooves to appear on the hallway paved with blue stones. Dust flew around uncontrollably, along with blood from those slashed. The scene looked like a group of demons killing in the foggy mist, the sounds piercing to the ear, but every shadow seemed to hide within the countless rays of sword lights, appearing blurry and indistinct. Intense spiritual and sword energy flew unchecked, causing even the guards that stood over tens of feet away to have their robes whipped around from the gales. However, the group in the center of this maelstrom, Ling Tian, Yu Man Lu and the others remained unmoving, their eyes still trained on the other party. Even their robes were affected, remaining still without any movements. The silence reigned like a volcano on the verge of eruption. They could only wait for the rain of war to descend. Among the intense battle, no one noticed an extremely fat and rotund figure perform a miraculous movement technique that looked impossible from his size, to infiltrate Bright Jade City, hiding in one of the shadows within the Palacia Broken Bar. Following a chain of miserable screams, at last, an incomparably brilliant sword glow, carrying with it a radiance that could rob one's eyesight, shot towards the Yu family head, Yu Manlu. Ling Tian, carrying the momentum of a peerlessly strong sword strike. This first pavilion master, whose name had struck all under the heavens, had finally turned his sword onto Yu Manlu, whose entire figure was now wreathed in demonic power. He displayed his strongest, fiercest strike, akin to the swing of a grim reaper's scythe. This sword shot out like lightning, booming like thunder. At this point, Ling Tian's eyes were already bloodshot. He would not allow the battle between Yu Manlu and his young noble to take place. Yu Tian pulled out his sword, soaring towards the sky to shield Yu Manlu, intending to accept Ling Tian's tyrannical sword strike. However, Ling Tian did not show any change in expression, neither did he change the posture of his sword, the killing intent continuing to billow. At this moment, any good feelings Ling Tian had towards Yu Tian, as well as their bonds of friendship, were all rendered void. Whoever dares to obstruct my young noble from his business has to die. Ling Tian's psyche had now entered a half-crazed state, with only the stimuli from the spray of fresh blood able to affect him. This had allowed the number one assassin to completely pull out his most bloodthirsty and ferocious character. Seeing that matters had taken a turn for the worse, Yu Mantang immediately drew his sword as well to assist. Sounds of explosion constantly sounded, and Ling Tian's head of black hair floated amid the sword glows as he howled. In a sudden show of strength, he forcefully broke through the blockage of the two Xiantian realm experts, and his sword strike shot unimpeded towards Yu Manlu. Yu Mantang and Yu Tian both suffered from numerous lacerations, and no longer had the strength to stay up in the air. To think that the joint alliance of both brothers could not withstand a single sword strike from Ling Tian. This went to show how much potential Ling Tian had burst forth, faced with the stimulus that was the safety of Ling Tian. This sword, not to mention the Yu brothers, even if it was Justice or Ling Tian standing in front, they would still need to exhaust much of their strength to resolve this strike. However, Yu Tian and Mantang were no doubt experts of the Golden Jade rank in the Yu family. While they failed to hold Ling Tian back, they managed to resolve most of the power behind Ling Tian's strike. While the sword glow in Ling Tian's sword strike remained as resplendent as ever, the power behind the strike was already akin to an arrow at the end of its flight. Yu Manlu barked out in mocking laughter as his sword flew out like a bolt of lightning to meet with Ling Tian. At the same time, his body blurred, and he appeared behind Ling Tian like a specter. It was not known when his sword disappeared, but now his palms had become completely black, carrying with them a strong aura of death. His left headed towards Ling Tian, the right towards Ling 30. At the same instant Yu Manlu's body blurred, Ling Tian and Li Zu also moved. Side by side, two black iron swords drew a phantom of a lotus, and the lotus formed from sword lights seemed to simultaneously bloom, shooting out countless sword lights towards Yu Manlu. Ling 30 on the other hand unrestrainedly laughed, as his sword appeared in his hand. The next moment, a brilliant light flashed, as he executed the skill of man and sword as one. Like a dart, he shot straight towards Yu Manlu, intending to perishing together. While Yu Manlu's heart was filled with fury, how can Ling 30 feel good as well? While both of their sides were at war, with both serving different purposes, but human lives were not akin to grass and wood, how could they not have their own feelings? Ling 30 was disguised as Ximensa, infiltrating the Yu family's camp and destroying it from the inside. How glorious an accomplishment was that! The merit was even more compared to what Ling Tian had done for the Ling family. However, Ling 30's conscience had long ago been tormented to the point he was neither alive nor dead. How many men were there in the camp? How many hot-blooded and good people? No matter enemies or allies, both sides were the same. Being the marshal of the Yu family's troops, he was well liked among officers and men alike, to the point that when he planned the defeat of the army and escaped after that, there were even many generals and soldiers who chose to block the attacks aimed at him and die miserable deaths, just so to allow Ling 30 to safely escape. The men in the army camps, the trust and hopes given by all of them, had all been passed to their young Marshal Ximensa. All the generals hoped that their troops would be victorious, and the soldiers hoped that they would be able to showcase themselves in this war, to be spotted and groomed by the upper management. Before the war even started, there were even mothers and wives, passing their children over to Ximensa, hoping that their children would come in safely. But Ximensa had another identity, and that was Ling 30. Ling 30's job was to take their trust as a big juicy piece of meat, and bestow it with both hands onto their enemies, for them to be butchered. Every time he looked at the various generals of the Yu family, in various dying conditions, their eyes full of despair yet continuously shouting, "Quickly escape, Marshal," he would feel extremely agonized in his heart. The torment was such that even after his objective was achieved, he was still plagued by nightmares constantly, having an urge to commit suicide to atone for his sins. 1.6 million troops. How many mothers were still waiting for their children back home? How many wives were still pining by the door for the husband that would never return? How many of the children back home would never get to meet their father even once? How many of them were pillars of their families? All of them were hot-blooded men. It was just that a broken bar they had followed the wrong person. If it was merely such, then Ling 30 would not feel such guilt in his heart. However, during the final battle with the Divine Prefecture Empire troops, he could not avoid seeing the numerous deaths and injuries, seeing the troops he led fall off their horses, only to be greeted by chopping blades. Their screams of misery were akin to the screams of the devils within his heart, wrenching his organs. He possessed a body of high-leveled martial skills, but he had to keep them hidden. Ling 30 had sacrificed all he had for the rise of the Divine Prefecture Empire and even accomplished the highest level of merits for the empire. However, his heart was already weary and full of wounds. Even if he was a top assassin, with a heart of ice and veins of steel, he still could not avoid carrying such a heavy burden. Maybe death would be the best release and medicine for him. A determined expression surfaced on Ling 30's face, as he locked his sword at Yu Man Lu, rushing forth. 30. Ling Tian hollered. 30. Ling Jian screamed as well. With their eyesight, how could they not see that Ling 30's sword had no route of return for himself? Both of them were conflicted in their hearts. To think that Ling 30 had no will to live at all. Yu Man Lu shot up into the air, resembling a crazed devil ascending from the depths of hell as he maniacally laughed. Suddenly his figure twirled like a pinwheel, slamming his foot onto the waist of Ling 30, using the momentum to further propel himself into the air as he yelled, "Justice!" Join the party as well. Just hiding there in a corner, is it very glorious? What number one? How about we determine who is the real number one today? In the same period, Li Zhu, who was back on the ground, waved her slender hands, causing 3 black-colored metallic balls to fly out from her hand. They formed a triangular shape as they flew towards Yu Man Lu. While their speed was not fast, the balls were angled in such a position where no matter how he twisted, he would still come into contact with at least one of them. Yu Man Lu knew that something fishy was up, but he merely laughed as he swept his sleeve to push them away. Unfortunately, just as they neared him, and right before he activated his inner energy to drive them away, they swung inwards like boomerangs returning to their owner, and knocked fiercely against each other. Hong! A huge explosion sounded, with black smoke rolling from the point. Yu Man Lu screamed, plummeting down like a huge boulder. Justice had just drawn his sword, prepared to charge out to meet Yu Man Lu's challenge. But upon seeing him falling from grace, he could not help but let out a breath of relief. Ling 30 spat out a mouthful of fresh blood as he swayed and dropped down. In midair, Ling Tian intercepted him, using his sword to stab deeply into Ling 30's waist. With a twirl, he tore out a huge piece of flesh from him. A gaping bloody maw appeared on Ling 30's abdomen, with fresh blood spewing out. This stab was so serious that even his organs could be seen. However, Ling Tian did not have any other alternative. If he did not slice off the infected area, most likely, Ling 30's outcome would be to turn into a puddle of black water. Those with sharp eyesight could see that the huge piece of flesh Ling Tian had carved out was a burnished copper color as it tumbled through midair, but it had already turned pale gray by the time it landed. Merely seconds later, the flesh turned ink blank, finally dissolving into a black-colored miasma. A broken bar. Justice flew out at this time, and with a wave of his sleeve, a gale blew out, dispersing the miasma. As it faded, everyone could see that the land was completely blackened. Such corrosive venom was it, that even the stones and rocks were not spared. At the side, the other two Yu brothers who were lying on the ground full of sword wounds also witnessed this strange evil technique, and could not help but stare dumbfounded. While they long knew that the cultivation practiced by their elder brother was a demonic technique, they did not expect such a venomous outcome to unfold. Ling Tian beckoned with his right hand, supporting Ling 30 as he put his hands on his meridians. His face then lit up, and he immediately took action, hitting his acupoints to cease his blood flow. Ling 30's face was bloodless as he stared at Ling Tian, as though wanting to say something. His lips moved, yet no sound came out. Finally, his head sagged as he lost consciousness. However, the mental trauma still existed on his face. Two slow streams of tears flowed down from his face. Ling Tian's heart lurched. Only now did he understand the reason behind Ling 30 seeking death. He commanded Ling Feng to take Ling 30 away, commanding him to take good care of the latter. Ling Feng had his eyes full of tears as he received Ling 30. From the origin of the explosion, the smoke suddenly scattered and blew apart as Yu Manlu rushed forth with his sword in hand. His garments were tattered, covered in soot, with countless wounds leaking blood. To think that 3 grenades exploding near him were unable to kill him outright. Yu Manlu's speed resembled lightning as he spun in midair. His sword let out countless silvery lights, and his other palm released inky waves. At this moment, he seemed to have covered the entire sky, as he pressed down towards Ling Tian. Ling Tian and the others were not aware, but after practicing the mnemonic technique, Yu Manlu's skin had toughened beyond smelted iron. While the killing power behind the 3 grenades was not small at all, they were far from able to send him to the underworld. This strike of his could only be taken head-on. With Ling Tian's current strength, he definitely could overpower Yu Manlu. He only needed a full-out attack to judge Yu Manlu once and for all. However, to do so would be to come into contact with Yu Manlu's palm or sword. No matter which one it was, he would then be afflicted with a death curse. While Yu Manlu might die, Ling Tian would also be unable to survive. Even with Ling Tian's current accomplishments, for him to avoid this blow was a little tricky but possible. But beside him was Li Zhu, Ling Jian, and Ling Kai. These 3 were unwilling to retreat. They wanted to rush up, but rushing up only meant death. Ling Tian could see the resolve in their eyes. Especially for Li Zhu, the warmth in her eyes was like the sea a broken bar. The reason why Ling Jian suggested to attack the city was also because of the exact same matter. This was also the same reason why Li Zhu insisted on following Ling Tian over this time. Li Zhu took one last glance at Ling Tian, the deep feelings and warmth in her eyes apparent. 8 Danj, I destroyed one of your lifetimes, so I shall return it to you this lifetime. For you, I have no regrets. Ling Tian howled furiously to the sky. The heaven splitter took in his entire body's inner strength, turning into a milky white color similar to that of white jade. With a swing of his sword, it was as though a silver river of stars descended from the 9 heavens, constructing a glittering sword wall in front of him. Yu Manlu only laughed boisterously, continuing his rush without hiding or avoiding. An expression of panic appeared in Justice's face for the first time in his life. He swung his sword as well, flying over like a shooting star, piercing straight at Yu Manlu. In the darkness, a large figure also revealed itself, rushing forward. The speed at which the fat figure moved was so quick that the air produced popping sounds due to the pressure. Fresh blood sprayed as Yu Manlu used his enhanced body and muscles to break through Ling Tian's sword wall. His 2 palms radiating black miasma, he sinisterly smiled as he slapped down towards Ling Tian. Ling Tian gritted his teeth, choosing to gather his force onto his palms to meet him face on. He had already decided, the moment he received the blow, to immediately chop off both his hands. If that still could not stop the venom, then he could only blame it on his bad luck, and go back into the afterlife. Young noble, take care, Ling Jian and Ling Kai hollered at this time, as though bidding their final farewells to Ling Tian. With a flash of their figure, both of them obstructed Ling Tian, rushing towards Yu Manlu. Ling Tian jolted, grabbing each person with one hand and throwing them to the side. However, doing so exposed his chest. Yu Manlu's blackened palms were now aimed there, less than a meter away. A slim body suddenly moved between the two combatants, akin to flowing clouds and shifting winds with just a twist of the waist. Li Zu's face was full of determination, her jade hands gathering all the energy in her body before thrusting out to meet Yu Manlu. At this point, she was not looking at Yu Manlu. She was fully aware that her palms would connect with Yu Manlu. Given the intensity of the battle and their speed, he had no time to shift away. As such, Li Zu was not looking at him, but rather used all her strength to turn back, staring into Ling Tian's eyes, memorizing his facial features. It was as though she was trying to carve his features deep into her own heart, her soul. Yu Manlu cackled, "Ling Tian, I might not be able to kill you today, but I still can make you live in misery for the rest of your life." Pooh! Just as his sword, fueled by his anger, unerringly crushed Yu Manlu's internal energy protection on the surface of his body, stabbing deep into his heart. However, his actions were already unable to divert his palms. The two palms emitting black miasma were just about to come into contact with Li Zu's hands. Xwr! Ling Tian screamed his lungs out, his eyes bloodshot as wrenching pain pierced his heart. His eyesight suddenly blurred. From the past to the present, could it be that I'm destined to never be together with you? Heart-wrenching pain. During this life and death moment, a figure that was quick to the extreme suddenly flew out, inserting into the core of the battle. With a mighty aping sound, Yu Manlu's palms contacted on the front of his chest, breaking all his ribs. As for Li Zu, because she was looking back to Ling Tian, she could not withdraw her hands on time and smashed towards his back. The sturdy back caved in with her blow. A broken bar. The intruder let out a dull snort, turning over to look at Ling Tian and Ling Jian, before showing a joyful smile. That swollen face looked familiar. As everyone stood stunned, the person limply fell to the ground. The newcomer was none other than the Ling brother who had not received any task this time, Ling 50. Everyone was aware that Ling 50 had the worst fighting skills among all the youths surnamed Ling, to the point that he was still unable to execute the man and sword as one. As such, when Ling Jian gathered all the youths for the final battle, he was not included. However, no one knew that his movement techniques had reached the highest state among all the youths, comparable to that of Ling Jian himself. With his round figure, to achieve such a level of movement technique, what sort of price had he paid? His self-created movement technique was named aptly as, "White Steed Flits Past a Crack, It's Lonely at the Top." It was precisely the term "White Steed Flits Past a Crack" that he was able to do what was deemed impossible, which was to slot himself in between Yu Manlu and Li Zu at the last moment. Or maybe, this was the true meaning of "It's Lonely at the Top." A broken bar. 50. Brother. Ling Tian's face lost color as he shouted out, 50, my brother. Ling Jian let out a mournful howl. The pain at the loss of a brother caused him to vomit blood, but he suddenly burst out into laughter. What a good 50. Indeed, a brother of mine. Us 56 brothers will forever be proud of your achievements. He wildly laughed, yet the tears flowed down unbidden from his face. Yu Manlu had received a life-threatening injury from justice and had forcibly used the last stretches of his strength to power his final blow, his face full of wicked glee. He was looking forward to the heartbreak he would see on Ling Tian's face, but with this sudden change, his face displayed endless shock. How could it turn out this way? Why is it this way? Yu Manlu turned violent, struggling as he howled out in anger, Ling Tian, I want you to be buried with me. Broken bar. But before he could finish, his orifices burst out with fresh blood, including the whole front and back made by justice. He fell powerlessly to the ground, landing on top of 50's corpse. He could only mumble, count yourself lucky. Your luck is good. A broken bar. His life force was slowly waning, but his eyes remained open, full of hatred and unwillingness. In just moments, Both Yu Man Lu and 50's corpses turned into a puddle of black water, slowly seeping into the ground. The cloud of black miasma produced persisted even with the rays of sunlight shining onto it, as though it was Ling 50 showing his reluctance to leave this world, the reluctance to part with his brothers, and was leaving his final thoughts. Even though it was lonely at the top, one would still wish for the warmth of others. A broken bar. Ling Tian's nose soured, and the tears dripped down slowly. A broken bar. Li Zhu turned around, throwing herself into Ling Tian's bosom, bawling her eyes out. Ling Jian and company all had tears flowing down their faces, raising their swords as a hero's tribute. The 56 of them had been companions since they were kids, suffering through the same arduous childhoods with their only reliance being each other, to this point where they were all experts. None of them had died along the journey. To think that at this final juncture, their youngest brother would be taken away from them. The 1.6 million troops of the Yu family were routed, Bright Jade City was broken into, and Yu Man Lu died under the encirclement of Ling Tian, Justice, Li Zhu, and company. The Heavenly Star Continent was now the piece of heaven belonging to the Divine Prefecture Empire. All below heavens, there is nothing which was not the Emperor's territory. From coast to coast there was nothing that did not belong to the Emperor. Ling Tian carefully consoled the other two Yu brothers, sending them over to Skybearing to reunite with Yu Bingyan. They had been wounded by Ling Jian's sword, but their lives were in no danger. Besides, the two of them were golden jade experts and easily recovered from their flesh wounds. It was just that they felt a sense of loss at Yu Man Lu's death. Regarding this, Ling Tian had nothing to say and believed that only time could heal their wounds. With the Heavenly Star Continent united under one flag, Ling Tian sent out an imperial edict. A new cabinet was to be set up, and all under him were exempted from taxes for 3 years, allowing the civilians to recuperate. The imperial order from Ling Tian allowed Ling Jian and the rest to recover to their former states. This was followed by a round of meritorious rewards, bestowing titles and positions to them. Those who were unwilling to accept could still remain under Ling Jian to work for him. Ling 30's abdomen had been carved out by Ling Tian, and while he was not in danger, he had lost too much vitality. Even with the precious medicines concocted by Ling Tian, he was unable to fully recover, and could no longer perform any strenuous activities. Ling Tian allowed Ling 30 to go under Ling Jian's flag, becoming an army strategist. In the 5 years Ling Tian was emperor, Ling Kai brought the army to travel across the ocean, meeting up with Ling 1, Shui Man Kong, and the rest to occupy the Heavenly Wind Continent. Shui Man Kong announced the disbandment of the Shui aristocratic family, opting to merge with the Divine Prefecture Empire. As a result, Ling Kai became the second Duke of the Divine Prefecture Empire. In the same year, Ling Jian and Marshal Zhao Fingyang led a campaign to the Heavenly Sun Continent, trampling everything beneath their feet. In the end, the entire 3 continents of the world all fell under the rule of the Divine Prefecture Empire. And now, Ling Tian could rightfully be considered the monarch of the world. On the day Ling Tian united the world under one flag, his martial arts also reached the peak level. As he sat in his palace, the martial order medallion owner Justice floated in, passing all the restrictions on the palace, challenging Ling Tian. Ling Tian easily agreed and left barehanded. A week later, Ling Tian returned without any injuries, but Justice vanished from the world. The previous martial order medallion owner was now only a legend, a tale passed down in the martial world. The Beyond Heavens sect also disbanded shortly after. On one of the days when Ling Tian and the other brothers gathered for drinks, Ling Jian, whose martial arts had reached the standard of Justice the year he challenged Ling Tian, suddenly asked, "The pinnacle of martial arts, just what exactly is it?" Ling Tian laughed out as he explained, "Ever since I took part in the battle with Justice, I came to the conclusion that be it in any world, it should all be the same. Because it is the act of stepping into the martial way through martial arts, there would no doubt be some figment of imagination involved. However, so long as there is a visualization of a peak in your heart, then anything can be the pinnacle. There's no need to delve so deeply into it. One has their own attachments, so why bother to chase after the peak?" Ling Tian could not make heads or tails of this and was even more unable to understand what he meant by a in any world. But upon pressing the question, Ling Tian merely smiled and replied that this could not be revealed. Only be truly treasuring what one has in front of them, can a person truly deem themselves as having reached the pinnacle. One only needs to truly treasure what they have in front of them, and they can deem themselves as having reached the pinnacle. Ling Tian and company were also curious about what happened during the final battle with Justice, but Ling Tian just refused to answer. When asked why Justice passed on, Ling Tian merely laughed out as he said something mysterious and befuddling. With the heavenly gifts of that darned B Street Road, he is probably already in university, right? I really wish to see what sort of attitude that lass would have in the university. The pretty girls in my hometown were all good cabbages. What a pity. It's a slang where they say something occurs so often or is so common that it appears to be like cabbages, commonly grown and seen everywhere. Everyone's head was wrapped in fog at this time, feeling their heads about to split from thinking, what nonsense was their emperor spouting now? Who was that lass? And what was this thing called a university? Why did he even lump pretty ladies with cabbages? Why was it a pity? Countless questions were asked. But the more Ling Tian spoke, the more muddled everyone became. Only Li Zhu, who sat beside Ling Tian, let out tinkling laughter, trembling all over. The rest stared, not knowing what she was laughing about. The Emperor Ling Tian, who was mightily drunk at this time, spoke out, with the establishment of this divine prefecture empire, I thereupon announce my children as the descendants of the Yellow and Flame Emperors. From now on, all descendants shall be named as a Yan Huang, without exception nor change. The combined empire consisting of the 3 continents will also be changed to be named as the Yan Huang Great Continent. Yan Huang refers to the Flame and Yellow Emperor, and is used to describe the current Han Chinese population. A decade later, Ling Tian passed on the throne to his eldest son, the son of Ling Chen, Ling Mingyang. He brought a few of his confidants, and together with Ling Jian and his wife, vanished off the face of this earth. The only thing that was left of him was an everlasting history, named as the Legend of Ling Tian. This was passed down generation after generation, through the seasons and years alike, without a single change. In a different time space not known to everyone in his current life, Ling Jian had lost all his bearings of a peak expert, and also no longer had his aura of a cold-faced assassin. He was busy chasing after the backside of Ling Tian, who was dressed in a suit, constantly questioning, "Young noble, what is that thing? It's completely covered in metal, so how could it run so quickly?" "A broken bar." "Young noble, the houses here are all built so high, if one doesn't have the movement techniques of our level, how do they even go up?" "Could it be that everyone here is an expert?" "Young noble, that woman there really does not know what shame is, to reveal her legs so daringly in the street." "A broken bar." "Young noble, this is wine? Why does it have the smell of horse piss, along with disgusting bubbles at the top? Why is young noble even drinking it with such gusto?" "A broken bar." "Young nobly broken bar." "Young nobly broken bar." "A broken bar." "A broken bar." "A broken bar," and right behind them, Sister Zhu. "This place is really weird." "A broken bar." "Sister Zhu, look at these." "A broken bar." Sister Zhu, what is cosmetics?" "A broken bar." "Sister Xu, a broken bar." Finally, Ling Jian spotted his target. That person had both arms around a beauty, with another still following behind him, looking as though his springtime had arrived. One look and you could tell that he was a complete profligate that had too much time and money on his hands. Viciously spitting, Ling Jian commented, "Such a hateful guy. One look and I know he isn't anything good. If we were back in our place, I would have long ago chopped him into several pieces." As though the person had supernatural senses, he lifted his hand, staring with eyes that were sharp and penetrating. Upon seeing Ling Tian and his group, he stopped in shock before shouting out loudly, "Oh my Emperor F. King Jeedness! It's actually you two?" Ling Jian also came to a halt. "Heavenly, a broken bar." The man in question immediately cut him with a cough. This lowly person is known as Song Tianli, cough cough. As he spoke, he came closer and whispered, "The legend of Ling Tian has already started selling in this place. so don't call me by my original name broken bar. Upon looking at the bevy of ladies behind Ling Tian, which included Ling Jian's wife, Song Jianli's jaw dropped. WTF, you brought so many over? Did you ferry all of them on a bus? An extra long Cadillac sped over to the roadside beside them at this instant, followed by a middle-aged man rushing out from the car as he exclaimed, "Great Master Song, I beg your honorable self to save my son. I'm willing to pay any amount. I just have this one son, so please." Another eye-catching sedan drove over, with a younger man leaping out from the car to shout, "Great Master Song, your divinations are truly too accurate. I beg you to give me some pointers once more, please." Money is not a problem. Yet another Kara broken bar. So it turned out that this guy was living as a cheat here. Old buddy, it seems like you're doing quite well here, eh? Well, all of us here have come specially to eat and mooch off you. Why, are you unhappy about it? Ling Tian spoke such offensive words using a genteel tone. Song Jianli's expression went pale, a helpless look plastered upon his face. Those famed people of 20 world were all surprised that this great master Song, who had few friends, would have such an uncouth, vulgar friend. A broken bar. End of series. Ling Tian jolted, grabbing each person with one hand and throwing them to the side. However, doing so exposed his chest. Yu Manlu's blackened palms were now aimed there, less than a meter away. A slim body suddenly moved between the two combatants, akin to flowing clouds and shifting winds with just a twist of the waist. Lizu's face was full of determination, her jade hands gathering all the energy in her body before thrusting out to meet Yu Manlu. At this point, she was not looking at Yu Manlu. She was fully aware that her palms would connect with Yu Manlu. Given the intensity of the battle and their speed, he had no time to shift away. As such, Lizu was not looking at him, but rather used all her strength to turn back, staring into Ling Tian's eyes, memorizing his facial features. It was as though she was trying to carve his features deep into her own heart, her soul. Yu Manlu cackled, "Ling Tian, I might not be able to kill you today, but I still can make you live in misery for the rest of your life." Pooh! Just as his sword, fueled by his anger, unerringly crushed Yu Manlu's internal energy protection on the surface of his body, stabbing deep into his heart. However, his actions were already unable to divert his palms. The two palms emitting black miasma were just about to come into contact with Lizu's hands. "Xwr!" Ling Tian screamed his lungs out. His eyes bloodshot as wrenching pain pierced his heart. His eyesight suddenly blurred. From the past to the present, could it be that I'm destined to never be together with you? Heart-wrenching pain. During this life and death moment, a figure that was quick to the extreme suddenly flew out, inserting into the core of the battle. With a mighty aping sound, Yu Manlu's palms contacted on the front of his chest, breaking all his ribs. As for Lizu, because she was looking back to Ling Tian, she could not withdraw her hands on time and smashed towards his back. The sturdy back caved in with her blow. A broken bar. The intruder let out a dull snort, turning over to look at Ling Tian and Ling Jian, before showing a joyful smile. That swollen face looked familiar. As everyone stood stunned, the person limply fell to the ground. The newcomer was none other than the Ling brother, who had not received any task this time, Ling 50. Everyone was aware that Ling 50 had the worst fighting skills among all the youths surnamed Ling, to the point that he was still unable to execute the man and sword as one. As such, when Ling Jian gathered all the youths for the final battle, he was not included. However, no one knew that his movement techniques had reached the highest state among all the youths, comparable to that of Ling Jian himself. With his round figure, to achieve such a level of movement technique, what sort of price had he paid? His self-created movement technique was named aptly as, "White Steed Flits Past a Crack, It's Lonely at the Top." It was precisely the term "White Steed Flits Past a Crack" that he was able to do what was deemed impossible, which was to slot himself in between Yu Manlu and Lizu at the last moment. Or maybe, This was the true meaning of "It's lonely at the top a broken bar." 50. Brother. Ling Tian's face lost color as he shouted out, 50. My brother. Ling Tian let out a mournful howl. The pain at the loss of a brother caused him to vomit blood, but he suddenly burst out into laughter. What a good 50. Indeed, a brother of mine. Us 56 brothers will forever be proud of your achievements. He wildly laughed, yet the tears flowed down unbidden from his face. Yu Manlu had received a life-threatening injury from justice and had forcibly used the last stretches of his strength to power his final blow, his face full of wicked glee. He was looking forward to the heartbreak he would see on Ling Tian's face, but with this sudden change, his face displayed endless shock. How could it turn out this way? Why is it this way? Yu Manlu turned violent, struggling as he howled out in anger, Ling Tian, I want you to be buried with me, broken bar. But before he could finish, his orifices burst out with fresh blood, including the whole front and back made by justice. He fell powerlessly to the ground, landing on top of 50's corpse. He could only mumble, count yourself lucky. Your luck is good, a broken bar. His life force was slowly waning, but his eyes remained open, full of hatred and unwillingness. In just moments, both Yu Manlu and 50's corpses turned into a puddle of black water, slowly seeping into the ground. The cloud of black miasma produced persisted even with the rays of sunlight shining onto it, as though it was Ling 50 showing his reluctance to leave this world, the reluctance to part with his brothers, and was leaving his final thoughts. Even though it was lonely at the top, one would still wish for the warmth of others. A broken bar. Ling Tian's nose soured, and the tears dripped down slowly. A broken bar. Li Zhu turned around, throwing herself into Ling Tian's bosom, bawling her eyes out. Ling Tian and company all had tears flowing down their faces, raising their swords as a hero's tribute. The 56 of them had been companions since they were kids, suffering through the same arduous childhoods with their only reliance being each other, to this point where they were all experts. None of them had died along the journey. To think that at this final juncture, their youngest brother would be taken away from them. The 1.6 million troops of the Yu family were routed, Bright Jade City was broken into, and Yu Manlu died under the encirclement of Ling Tian, Justice, Li Zhu, and company. The Heavenly Star Continent was now the piece of heaven belonging to the Divine Prefecture Empire. All below heavens, there is nothing which was not the Emperor's territory. From coast to coast there was nothing that did not belong to the Emperor. Ling Tian carefully consoled the other two Yu brothers, sending them over to Skybearing to reunite with Yu Bingyan. They had been wounded by Ling Jian's sword, but their lives were in no danger. Besides, the two of them were golden jade experts and easily recovered from their flesh wounds. It was just that they felt a sense of loss at Yu Manlu's death. Regarding this, Ling Tian had nothing to say and believed that only time could heal their wounds. With the Heavenly Star Continent united under one flag, Ling Tian sent out an imperial edict. A new cabinet was to be set up, and all under him were exempted from taxes for 3 years, allowing the civilians to recuperate. The imperial order from Ling Tian allowed Ling Jian and the rest to recover to their former states. This was followed by a round of meritorious rewards, bestowing titles and positions to them. Those who were unwilling to accept could still remain under Ling Jian to work for him. Ling 30's abdomen had been carved out by Ling Tian, and while he was not in danger, he had lost too much vitality. Even with the precious medicines concocted by Ling Tian, he was unable to fully recover, and could no longer perform any strenuous activities. Ling Tian allowed Ling 30 to go under Ling Jian's flag, becoming an army strategist. In the 5 years Ling Tian was emperor, Ling Kai brought the army to travel across the ocean, meeting up with Ling 1, Shui Man Kong, and the rest to occupy the Heavenly Wind Continent. Shui Man Kong announced the disbandment of the Shui aristocratic family, opting to merge with the Divine Prefecture Empire. As a result, Ling Kai became the second Duke of the Divine Prefecture Empire. In the same year, Ling Jian and Marshal Fingyang led a campaign to the Heavenly Sun Continent, trampling everything beneath their feet. In the end, the entire 3 continents of the world all fell under the rule of the Divine Prefecture Empire. And now, Ling Tian could rightfully be considered the monarch of the world. On the day Ling Tian united the world under one flag, His martial arts also reached the peak level. As he sat in his palace, the martial order medallion owner Justice floated in, passing all the restrictions on the palace, challenging Ling Tian. Ling Tian easily agreed and left barehanded. A week later, Ling Tian returned without any injuries, but Justice vanished from the world. The previous martial order medallion owner was now only a legend, a tale passed down in the martial world. The Beyond Heavens sect also disbanded shortly after. On one of the days when Ling Tian and the other brothers gathered for drinks, Ling Tian, whose martial arts had reached the standard of Justice the year he challenged Ling Tian, suddenly asked, "The pinnacle of martial arts, just what exactly is it?" Ling Tian laughed out as he explained, "Ever since I took part in the battle with Justice, I came to the conclusion that be it in any world, it should all be the same. Because it is the act of stepping into the martial way through martial arts, there would no doubt be some figment of imagination involved. However, so long as there is a visualization of a peak in your heart, then anything can be the pinnacle. There's no need to delve so deeply into it. One has their own attachments, so why bother to chase after the peak?" Ling Tian could not make heads or tails of this and was even more unable to understand what he meant by a in any world. But upon pressing the question, Ling Tian merely smiled and replied that this could not be revealed. Only be truly treasuring what one has in front of them, can a person truly deem themselves as having reached the pinnacle. One only needs to truly treasure what they have in front of them, and they can deem themselves as having reached the pinnacle. Ling Tian and company were also curious about what happened during the final battle with Justice, but Ling Tian just refused to answer. When asked why Justice passed on, Ling Tian merely laughed out as he said something mysterious and befuddling, "With the heavenly gifts of that darned B Street Road, he is probably already in university, right? I really wish to see what sort of attitude that lass would have in the university. The pretty girls in my hometown were all good cabbages. What a pity." It's a slang where they say something occurs so often or is so common that it appears to be like cabbages, commonly grown and seen everywhere. Everyone's head was wrapped in fog at this time, feeling their heads about to split from thinking, what nonsense was their emperor spouting now? Who was that lass? And what was this thing called a university? Why did he even lump pretty ladies with cabbages? Why was it a pity? Countless questions were asked. But the more Ling Tian spoke, the more muddled everyone became. Only Li Zhu, who sat beside Ling Tian, let out tinkling laughter, trembling all over. The rest stared, not knowing what she was laughing about. The Emperor Ling Tian, who was mightily drunk at this time, spoke out, "With the establishment of this divine prefecture empire, I thereupon announce my children as the descendants of the Yellow and Flame Emperors. From now on, all descendants shall be named as a Yan Huang, without exception nor change. The combined empire consisting of the 3 continents will also be changed to be named as the Yan Huang Great Continent." Yan Huang refers to the Flame and Yellow Emperor, and is used to describe the current Han Chinese population. A decade later, Ling Tian passed on the throne to his eldest son, the son of Ling Chen, Ling Mengyang. He brought a few of his confidants, and together with Ling Jian and his wife, vanished off the face of this earth. The only thing that was left of him was an everlasting history, named as the Legend of Ling Tian. This was passed down generation after generation, through the seasons and years alike, without a single change. In a different time space not known to everyone in his current life, Ling Jian had lost all his bearings of a peak expert, and also no longer had his aura of a cold-faced assassin. He was busy chasing after the backside of Ling Tian, who was dressed in a suit, constantly questioning, "Young noble, what is that thing? It's completely covered in metal, so how could it run so quickly?" "A broken bar." "Young noble, the houses here are all built so high, if one doesn't have the movement techniques of our level, how do they even go up? Could it be that everyone here is an expert?" "Young noble, that woman there really does not know what shame is, to reveal her legs so daringly in the street. A broken bar." "Young noble, this is wine? Why does it have the smell of horse piss, along with disgusting bubbles at the top? Why is young noble even drinking it with such gusto?" "A broken bar." "Young nobly broken bar." "Young nobly broken bar." "A broken bar." "A broken bar." "A broken bar." And right behind them, Sister Zhu, This place is really weird. A broken bar. Sister Zhu, look at these. A broken bar. Sister Zhu, what is cosmetics? A broken bar. Sister Xu, a broken bar? Finally, Ling Tian spotted his target. That person had both arms around a beauty, with another still following behind him, looking as though his springtime had arrived. One look and you could tell that he was a complete profligate that had too much time and money on his hands. Viciously spitting, Ling Tian commented, such a hateful guy. One look and I know he isn't anything good. If we were back in our place, I would have long ago chopped him into several pieces. As though the person had supernatural senses, he lifted his hand, staring with eyes that were sharp and penetrating. Upon seeing Ling Tian and his group, he stopped in shock before shouting out loudly, "Oh my Emperor F King Jeedness! It's actually you two?" Ling Tian also came to a halt. Heavenly, a broken bar. The man in question immediately cut him with a cough. This lowly person is known as Song Tianli, cough cough. As he spoke, he came closer and whispered, "The legend of Ling Tian has already started selling in this place. So don't call me by my original name, a broken bar." Upon looking at the bevy of ladies behind Ling Tian, which included Ling Tian's wife, Song Tianli's jaw dropped. "WTF? You brought so many over? Did you ferry all of them on a bus?" An extra long Cadillac sped over to the roadside beside them at this instant, followed by a middle-aged man rushing out from the car as he exclaimed, "Great Master Song, I beg your honorable self to save my son. I'm willing to pay any amount. I just have this one son, so please." Another eye-catching sedan drove over, with a younger man leaping out from the car to shout, "Great Master Song, your divinations are truly too accurate. I beg you to give me some pointers once more, please." Money is not a problem. Yet another Kara broken bar. So it turned out that this guy was living as a cheat here. "Old buddy, it seems like you're doing quite well here, eh?" "Well, all of us here have come specially to eat and mooch off you." "Why, are you unhappy about it?" Ling Tian spoke such offensive words using a genteel tone. Song Tianli's expression went pale, a helpless look plastered upon his face. Those famed people of 20 World were all surprised that this great Master Song, who had few friends, would have such an uncouth, vulgar friend. A broken bar. End of series. Thank you for your continued following. Please support us by subscribe to encourage our continued creation. And press the bell to notify new chapter from us. Thank you.